Chapter 2794 Buffer Zone. Chapter 2794 Buffer Zone. Yang Kai and Lan Xuan landed together. Xiao Chen and Lei Ting immediately greeted them. His Royal Highness. Xiao Chen greeted with a smile, but Lei Ting, who walked up with him, looked a little uneasy, looking around, as if extremely uncomfortable. Senior Brother Xiao, Senior Brother Lei. Lan Xuan smiled and glanced at the two of them. Lei Ting hesitated, his face flushed suddenly, and he didn't even dare to look directly into Lan Xuan's eyes. Surprise flashed across Yang Kai's eyes, he glanced at Lei Ting, then at Lan Xuan, grinning playfully. Brother Yang. Xiao Chen clasped his fists at Yang Kai, with a friendly and easygoing demeanor. He changed from the domineering person he had met several times before, as if he was a different person. Brother Xiao, Brother Lei, we meet again. Yang Kai replied. Lei Ting snorted softly, and turned his head aside. Yang Kai didn't take it seriously, and said, are we the only four entering the Emperor's senior realm in the five-color pagoda this time? Although there are many warriors gathered here, it seems that there are only 4 of them in the Emperor's senior realm. Although the 4 elders of the Emperor's senior 3-layer mirror are also here, they will definitely not enter. Lan Xuan nodded and said, well, there are only 4 of us. The price to enter the 5-color pagoda in the Emperor's senior realm is not small, and it will occupy more places, so each time you enter the Emperor's senior realm, you can't be too many. Yang Kai snorted. Lan Xuan said again, Senior Brother Yang, you have entered the 5-color pagoda to practice once, but that time is different from this time. The 5-color pagoda has 5 floors, and there are many broken spaces in each floor. These broken spaces, some are connected to each other and can enter and exit each other, and some are completely closed. The higher the number of floors, the more obvious this situation is. The space on the first floor is suitable for warriors in the Void Return realm, the second floor is suitable for Void King realm, and the third floor is suitable for Daoyuan realm, and as for the fourth floor, it is suitable for Emperor Senior realm. The top 5th floor, only the strongest in Emperor Senior realm can enter. Could it be that there is some seal? Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. Lan Xuan nodded and said, well, if you don't have enough strength, you can't enter the next floor. Of course, the higher the number of floors, the more dangerous it is. When the 5-color pagoda was opened more than 10 years ago, there appeared on the 2nd floor. Only the ancient wooden mandrill killed many people in Fenggalan City. Senior Brother Yang has personally experienced this, so he should still remember it vividly, right? Yang Kai said solemnly, how can you not remember? The disaster of the wooden mandrill caused tens of thousands of people to die in Fenggalan City at once, and Yang Kai had experienced the whole process, so he naturally remembered it clearly. Lan Xuan said seriously, although training in the 5-color pagoda is of great help to warriors, there are also many dangers. Every time the 5-color pagoda is opened, some of my Star God Palace disciples will fall into it. There is no way to completely guarantee their safety. Yang Kai frowned. Lan Xuan said, there is no way. It is said that the 5-color pagodas are those broken spaces that are sealed inside. They are all ancient battlefields. The worlds of all sides have been beaten to pieces. Although these worlds are broken, there are still many laws of heaven and earth, and many ancient relics with tenacious vitality. One can find the way of survival in it. Later, some powerful people collected those broken worlds with shocking means, and refined the 5-color pagoda. The pagoda has gone through vicissitudes of life, and after several twists and turns, it was obtained by my father, but even my father cannot fully control it. Those countless broken spaces. After a pause, Lan Xuan said with a smile, of course, even if he can control it, my father probably won't interfere. If the experience is not dangerous, then what is it called an experience? Yang Kai deeply agreed, nodded and said, Junior Sister Lan is right. Lan Xuan smiled and said, so if Senior Brother Yang enters the pagoda later, he must be careful and not be careless. I remember. Yang Kai nodded seriously. At the same time, almost all the disciples from the Star God Palace who participated in the 5-color pagoda training had arrived. The great elder Lei Hong coughed lightly, and the noisy voices below instantly quieted down, and thousands of pairs of eyes focused on him. The 5-color pagoda was open today. You are the elite of my shrine and the mainstay of the shrine in the future. The old man and all the elders hope that you can gain something in the pagoda. Of course, the premise is to save your own life. As fellow disciples, in the pagoda, we should help and support each other. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lan Xuan quietly communicated with Yang Kai again, telling him about the 5-color pagoda, and Yongkai remembered them all. Lei Hong didn't talk much, he just said a few words and then waved his hand, saying, "If you remember, then get ready to go in." When the words fell, he and the other 3 elders glanced at each other, each of them swayed, separated the 4 corners of the 5-color pagoda, activated the mysterious skills, and pinched the magic arts. When the Emperor Yuan surged, the 4 stretched out their hands and pointed downwards. After a bang, the door of the 5-color pagoda, which had been closed all along, suddenly opened. Although the action was fast, the 4 elders were suddenly sweating profusely at this moment. Obviously, the opening of the pagoda was also a heavy burden for them. And when the gate opened, a slowly rotating pitch-black vortex emerged from the gate, like the huge mouth of a ferocious beast, wanting to choose and devour someone. When the vortex first appeared, it was not very stable, and it was constantly twisting and changing, and there were waves of power fluctuations that made people feel palpitating and disturbing. But as the 4 elders continued to pour in their power, the vortex gradually stabilized, and the disturbing fluctuations gradually disappeared. This situation lasted for about a stick of incense, when the 4 elders suddenly received their kung fu together. All of them were pale, out of breath, and their breath was extremely weak. At this time, if someone randomly came to the 2nd level of Emperor Senior, they might not be opponents. "If you don't enter at this time, when will you wait?" Great Elder Lei Hong suddenly shouted. How can the disciples of the Star God Palace, who have been eager to try it for a long time, hesitate? Shaking their bodies one after another, they rushed into the vortex one by one and disappeared. The humility and politeness of the disciples of the great sect was immediately manifested. Thousands of people dispatched, although each one was as fast as the wind, there was no crowding and shoving, but it seemed extremely orderly. First, those warriors at the Void Returning Realm enter, then the Void King Realm, and then the Daoyuan Realm. Without using 50 breaths of kung fu, thousands of people had almost left, leaving only Yongkai and the other 4 Emperor Senior stage. "Let's go too." Lan Xuan greeted and flew forward first. Before rushing into the pitch-black vortex, Lan Xuan exhorted, "Senior brothers, take care." "Your Royal Highness, you too." Xiao Chen smiled slightly, showing concern at the right time. Xuan, Lei Ting stammered, and before he could complete his sentence, Lan Xuan had disappeared, and he immediately looked annoyed and depressed. "I'll take a step first." Xiao Chen laughed and rushed into the vortex. Lei Ting turned his head and stared at Yongkai viciously. "What?" Yongkai looked at him instead. "Don't let me touch you inside, or you will die." Lei Ting snorted coldly. Yongkai sneered and rushed into the vortex first. The field of vision blurred, and it did not fall into a broken world as Yongkai imagined. The moment Yongkai rushed into the 5-color pagoda, a strange force wave suddenly blocked his figure, and he couldn't help mobilizing himself the strongest forces ready for any eventuality. When the law of space was up and down, the whole person seemed to hit a ball of cotton and was bounced back. What he saw, Yongkai was taken aback. "I actually seem to be suspended in a void." Looking around, there are clouds and mists in all directions, illusory, and these clouds and mists are of different colors. Some are colorful and pleasing to the eye, and some are dim in color, a mass of clouds. Dead air, and even some pitch black, uncomfortable. There are countless such existences around Yongkai. What's happening here? Yongkai's head was a little dizzy. This is a bit different from what Lan Xuan said before. The 5-color pagoda is further divided into 5 floors, and there are many broken spaces in each floor. Some of these spaces are connected to each other, and some are completely closed. Warriors who enter the 5-color pagoda will be automatically placed in the number of floors and spaces suitable for their own experience according to their strength. For example, a Void Returning Realm warrior, passing through the gate of the pagoda, will directly enter a broken space on the 1st floor. Another example is the Void King Realm martial artist, who will enter a broken space on the 2nd floor. Such as Yongkai's Emperor Senior 1 layer, will definitely enter the 4th layer. There is no way to enter the 5th floor directly through the pagoda gate, but to find the entrance from the 4th floor. Yongkai thought that he would definitely appear in a broken space on the 4th floor, and Lan Xuan also said so, but now it seems that something is not quite right. This is definitely not the broken space on the 4th floor, because Yongkai can't feel any power of law here. What are the clouds and mist of different colors? Divine sense released to investigate, Yongkai was shocked and horrified. Because he found that these cloud-like existences were somewhat like the entrances of void corridors, passing through these entrances, he didn't know where he would be sent. Frowning and standing there thinking for a while, Yongkai suddenly woke up and looked back. I saw a huge black vortex behind it, slowly rotating. Isn't this the entrance to the 5-color pagoda? How could it appear behind him? Behind is the entrance, so the front is the way to go. Could it be that he is in a buffer zone inside the 5-color pagoda? Yongkai thought a lot, and suddenly a flash of inspiration. Could it be said that the entrances of these cloud-like void corridors are? Turning around and looking around, Yongkai spotted a group of cloud and mist emitting a dazzling golden light, and rushed in with a flash. The field of vision is upside down, the sky is spinning, and a strange force of law is lingering around him. When Yongkai came back to his senses, people had appeared on a vast plain. In the plain, not a single blade of grass grows, and the gravel is covered with it. It looks extremely desolate. There is no sun, moon and stars, but it is as bright as the day. It's such a strong metallic aura. Yongkai felt a little bit, with a shocked expression on his face. The aura of heaven and earth here is a bit weird and outrageous. It is extremely rich, but it has a single attribute. It is not a natural aura, but a metallic one. To be continued. Chapter 2795 Broken World. Phone reading. If there are martial artists who practice metallic skills or secret arts, they will be ecstatic about such a cultivation environment. Practicing in this kind of place, the efficiency is definitely improved by 10 times and 100 times. Is this the shattered space on the 4th floor? Yongkai pondered. Sure enough, it's a bit distorted. Lan Xuan also said before that because the spaces in the 5-color pagoda are broken and incomplete, even the laws of heaven and earth have become broken. In some spaces, the laws of heaven and earth have become extremely distorted over time, and there may be some one or several laws are extremely strong, while other laws are weak or even absent. This is the case in this broken space right now. The laws of the golden system are almost unifying the world. There is no place for other laws at all, and this distortion is really powerful. I entered here looking for a group of entrances exuding golden light. In other words, the color of those clouds and mist should represent the law of the broken space inside. And those clouds and mist are the entrances to each broken space. Through the clouds and mist that emit different colors, one can enter the broken spaces one by one. Why is this so? Yongkai is sure that other Star God Palace disciples have not encountered this kind of thing, because if it happened before, Lan Xuan would definitely say it. Since Lan Xuan didn't mention this matter, then Yongkai's experience is the only one. This is good news, because in such a buffer zone, Yongkai has the right to choose independently. He can choose which broken space to enter. The premise is that Yongkai can return to that buffer zone. Thinking this way in his heart, Yongkai immediately started to do it. The law of space is ups and downs, reaching out to tear the void in front of it. It went smoothly beyond imagination and did not encounter much obstacles. After thinking about it, he was relieved. After all, the world was broken, and the law of the world was incomplete, so how much interference could it bring to Yongkai? Void cracks appeared, and Yongkai got in a flash. When it reappeared, it really returned to the buffer zone. This time it was the same as last time. An inexplicable force came, flicking Yongkai, instinctively urging the power of space law, and his figure immediately stabilized in that magical buffer zone. There are clouds and mist all around. Ha, that's how it is. Yongkai laughed loudly. When he entered this buffer zone for the first time just now, Yongkai didn't know what was going on, but now he came here for the second time with the purpose of probing, and finally figured out the way. The law of space, according to Lan Xuan said. When warriors in the Emperor realm pass through the gate of the pagoda, they will be thrown into a broken space on the 4th floor by the 5-color pagoda, which must involve the law of space. And Yongkai himself is a person who is proficient in the laws of space. Under the ups and downs of the laws, he repelled the pulling force, so the 5-color pagoda has no way to throw him into any broken space, and can only let him stay in this buffer zone. Don't you just play whatever you want now? After figuring out what happened, Yongkai grinned. Others can only rely on luck to enter the 5-color pagoda. If they accidentally enter a dead place, that can only be blamed for not looking at the almanac when going out, but for Yongkai, there are many places that can be controlled independently. After the thought was clear, Yongkai immediately searched around. Naturally, those pitch-black, lifeless clouds and mists should be ignored. Entering them would definitely be a deadly place, and even the law of the sky and the earth would be very little left. What he is looking for are those brightly colored clouds, because the color of the clouds is directly connected to the hidden broken space. The brighter the color, The more outstanding the shattered space, the more useful it would be to him. Not long after, Yongkai spotted a group of colorful clouds and rushed straight in. Sure enough, not in the broken world entered this time. Although the laws of heaven and earth are still broken, they are not distorted. Unexpectedly, the aura of heaven and earth seems to be extremely strong, not inferior to the first-class sects in the southern region. But when Yongkai released his spiritual sense, but he couldn't help being a little surprised. So small he found that this broken space was extremely small, covering an area of only a few tens of acres, and the edge was filled with nothingness and chaos, giving people an extremely uncomfortable feeling. Such a small space is similar to Chenyi's Emperor Tianggu, but there are some plants and trees, but there are no living things. When Yongkai's spiritual sense swept over it, everything in this world could not be hidden. It's better to be small than nothing, and Yongkai also wants to know what kind of changes will be brought to the mysterious boundary orb after refining and absorbing the laws of heaven and earth in this world. Right as an experiment, thinking in this way, Yongkai immediately sacrificed the mysterious boundary bead, sat down cross-legged, folded his hands together, and placed the mysterious boundary bead in his palm. With a thought, the boundary opening of the mysterious boundary bead opened, and Yongkai immersed himself in it. While silently practicing the profound arts, he used his mind to control the mysterious boundary bead to devour the aura of heaven and earth and the broken law of heaven and earth. In an instant, the wind was surging, and the spiritual energy from all directions was continuously swallowed into the mysterious boundary bead, like thousands of streams flowing into the sea. At the same time, one after another extremely mysterious and almost unfathomable laws poured into the mysterious boundary orb along the boundary mouth, filling the space between the heaven and the earth in the mysterious small boundary. Suddenly, thunder and lightning flashed, and Yongkai opened his eyes suddenly aware of a wave of hostility, wrapping himself in all directions. Yongkai was shocked, thinking that there was some danger in this place that he hadn't noticed, but after careful inspection, he found that things were not what he thought. There was no living thing in the whole world, but the hostility was clear and real now. It seems to be everywhere, wrapping itself all around. His body instantly seemed to fall into an ocean full of hostility. The power of the world. Yongkai's expression froze, and he immediately realized what the hostility was all about. I use the mysterious boundary pearl to refine and devour the laws of heaven and earth in this world, which will naturally arouse the rejection and disgust of this world. Amidst the thunder and lightning, one after another lightning struck down from the head. Yongkai was unprepared, his whole body was convulsed by the beating, and he hurriedly urged Emperor Yuan to resist, which made him feel better. I was shocked in my heart. This is just the power of repulsion in a small world that covers an area of only a few tens of acres, and it has such power. If it is those larger worlds, how strong the repulsion and hostility would be. Fortunately, such a broken small world was chosen for the experiment at the beginning, otherwise, if we rashly touch those larger worlds, we might end up capsizing in the gutter. Rejoicing secretly in his heart, Yongkai clearly felt a strong repulsive force squeezed from all directions, as if he wanted to squeeze himself out of this world and prevent himself from doing whatever he wanted. But this repelling force is not strong after all. Yongkai just resisted it a little and it was as stable as a mountain. The thunder and lightning became even more violent. Yongkai sat there cross-legged with a meaningless face, with lightning falling on his head. He didn't care, as if a land rogue broke into the unarmed old farmer's house and wanted to rob everything in the house. The power of the world. The corners of Yongkai's mouth curled up, revealing a smile. Instead of being frightened, he was rather happy. A few years ago in the Broken Star Sea, I witnessed the shocking battle between the two great emperors, and let Yongkai understand a kind of power called the mighty power of heaven and earth, which is a power that is deeper than the power of law, and only the great emperor can control it. The power of. Isn't the power of this world the mighty power of heaven and earth? Although the world power in this side of the world is not strong, but after all, the root is Miaohong, so repelling and hostile to Yongkai, not only can't hurt him, but let him have the opportunity to get in touch with and understand this power in advance. Faintly, if you realize something. However, the good times didn't last long, and within only 3 hours, the lightning and thunder suddenly disappeared, and even the hostility of the whole world disappeared without a trace. When this happens, it's not because the world agrees with him, but because the mysterious boundary pearl has swallowed up the broken laws of this world. Even the remaining laws are gone, and this world can no longer make any hostile and repulsive behaviors. Yongkai opened his eyes, smashed his mouth, his face full of meaning. At this moment, the world suddenly shattered, the sky cracked one after another huge cracks, as if a mirror was smashed by someone, the earth also hummed and trembled, ravines grew steeply, and void cracks appeared in the surrounding void, came the breath of chaos and nothingness. Yang Kai got up quickly, reached out to tear the space, escaped from this world, and returned to the buffer zone. Just after returning to the buffer zone, a cloud of mist suddenly exploded in front of him, turning into dust and dissipating. This broken world just disappeared like this. Next, Yang Kai murmured to himself, and while his figure was shaking, he started to swim and search among the clouds. Not long after, he entered another broken world. There are many broken worlds here, although they are of different sizes, but upon careful observation, there are still traces to follow. Yang Kai dare not touch those two big worlds, only looking for those small worlds to start. In the same way, in just 3 days, the laws of more than a dozen small worlds were swallowed up by the mysterious boundary bead and completely shattered. Yang Kai clearly felt that the world inside the mysterious boundary orb had undergone some changes, and the laws of heaven and earth were undoubtedly more perfect, but there was still some distance from perfection. This made him very happy. During these 3 days, Yang Kai was in a good mood, but in the Star God Palace, outside the 5-color pagoda, the elders of the 3-layered mirrors of the 4 great emperors were gloomy and worried. Because after the 5-color pagoda was opened this time, some strange things happened. Some strange things that have never been encountered before. 3 hours after the pagoda was opened, a ray of light suddenly burst out on the 4th floor. At that time, the 4 elders were all meditating and resting near the pagoda, so several people could clearly see the change when it happened. Shocked, Lei Hong immediately went to check, but after checking and checking, he couldn't find Mingtang. The remaining 3 elders couldn't tell why. To be continued. This book comes from A&A-C1/2. Chapter 2796. 5 lines together, the world is born. Just as the 4 of them were looking for the reason, the previous scene actually reappeared. So far, it has happened more than a dozen times. The occurrence of such a situation on the 4th floor is undoubtedly because of what happened to the juniors of the Emperor Senior realm in it. Among the juniors, Yang Kai doesn't count, and the remaining Lan Xuan, Xiao Chen and Lei Ting are all descendants of the high-level officials of the Star God Palace, and no accidents can happen to each of them. The matter is of great importance, and the great elder Lei Hong did not dare to procrastinate any longer, so he could only send a message to the Emperor to report the matter here, and ask the Emperor to decide how to deal with it. Hasn't the Emperor given instructions yet? Shui Zhengmao hurriedly paced back and forth, then suddenly stopped and looked at Lei Hong and asked. Although the few disciples who experienced training on the 4th floor did not have his descendants, but as one of the 4 elders of the Star God Palace, his life is tied to the God Palace, and he is extremely concerned about everything in the God Palace. If not, he would not have bullied the weak that day, and dealt with Yang Kai with the big bullying the small. As soon as Lei Hong shook his head, he suddenly saw a white light coming from a distance. He was shocked immediately, he stretched out his hand to grab it, and felt a little, his expression suddenly became strange. What did the Emperor say? Xiao Yuyang asked in a deep voice. Lei Hong looked at the other 3 elders and replied, wait and see what happens. Wait and see what happens, how can you just wait and see what happens? Shui Zhengmao murmured, as if he didn't expect the Emperor's instructions to be this. Xiao Yuyang pondered for a while, and said, since the great Emperor said so, then naturally he has his reasons, and we can't rashly intervene. No one dared to disobey the Emperor's order. Since the Emperor had clearly issued instructions, everyone could only obey orders. Secretly guessing, those juniors may not be in any danger in the 4th floor, so the Emperor is not worried. Half a month later, in a dilapidated space, Yang Kai frowned. In the past half a month, he traveled through various broken spaces, urging the mysterious boundary orb to devour the power of the laws of many broken spaces, and gained huge gains. Not to mention that I have a little understanding of the power of the world, the laws of heaven and earth swallowed and absorbed by the mysterious boundary orb alone are unimaginable. The broken worlds are completely annihilated, and each annihilated world means that the mysterious boundary orb swallowed up all the laws. And every time, Yang Kai would encounter rejection and hostility from those worlds. The world is big or small, and the hostility can be strong or weak. Lightning, thunder, and lightning strikes are the most common things. There are even hidden ancient remnants in some broken worlds, each of which is powerful. Driven by the will of the world, these ancient remnants came to the door one after another. Fighting to the death with Yang Kai, just to drive out the foreign enemy. No matter how deep Yong-kai hides, he cannot escape this fate. Fortunately, this is only the 4th floor. Even if there are some ancient remnants, the strength is not too terrifying, and it is not difficult to deal with it with Yong-kai's current cultivation base. If it is the 5th floor of the highest floor, maybe this is not the case. However, the 5th floor cannot be directly entered from the buffer zone, and the entrance can only be found from some broken spaces on the 4th floor. Over the past few days, there have been dozens of broken spaces destroyed by Yong-kai, and countless ancient remnants killed by Yong-kai. But Yong-kai has never found the entrance to the 5th floor, and he doesn't know if he is too unlucky or there are too few entrances. After half a month of hard work, the harvest is naturally not small. It's just that Yong-kai has encountered a difficult matter now. He clearly felt that the law of heaven and earth devoured by the mysterious boundary orb was enough, not only enough, but even reached the level of saturation, but it still did not evolve from quantitative change to qualitative change, to that last step. This made him a little tangled. Tao produces 1, 1 produces 2, 2 produces 3, 3 produces all things, yin and yang transform the 5 elements, the 5 elements are in harmony, the world produces, the 5 elements, the 5 elements. Muttering incessantly, Yong-kai's eyes suddenly lit up, as if he had grasped something vaguely. After a while, he suddenly stood up, stretched out his hand to tear apart the space, and returned to the buffer zone. His eyes shone with sharp light, and he searched among the countless clouds. After a while, his eyes flashed brightly. I found it. His figure swayed, and he rushed directly towards a cloud of dazzling golden light. The next moment, the figure appeared in the world distorted by the golden law, which was also the first broken world that Yong-kai entered half a month ago. If the 5 elements are missing, then make up the 5 elements. Among the 5 color pagodas, there are only a lot of these things. Sacrifice the mysterious boundary orb, open the boundary opening, and devour the law and gold aura here with all its strength. Yong-kai parted a part of his mind to watch his surroundings. This kind of thing has been done a lot, and Yong-kai also has the experience to deal with it. Anyway, this world will never stand on the sidelines. If he is allowed to seize the power of his own laws, he will definitely interfere and repel him. It's just that according to different worlds and different powers of laws, the ways of interference and rejection are also different. There was no sign of clouds gathering in the sky, which made Yong-kai heave a sigh of relief. During this period of time, he was really afraid of being struck by lightning, and when he heard the explosion, he felt a little trembling. Fortunately, the golden law here is distorted. There is no room for other laws, and naturally there will be no thunder and lightning. However, the hostility and rejection in that world were unprecedentedly violent. If Yong-kai hadn't had a solid foundation and strong strength, he would have been pushed out long ago. What could it be? Yong-kai's expression was not only not nervous, but rather excited. This kind of experience of being an enemy of the whole world and contending with the world is not something that everyone can encounter. Every confrontation can make people grow. The worlds that Yong-kai was looking for before were all worlds with mixed laws of various systems. This was the first time such a world with a single law, so he couldn't help but look forward to it. Jung. A clear sound suddenly sounded, like a sword drawn from its sheath. Yong-kai looked along the voice, and suddenly raised his eyebrows. Not far away, a sharp blade of spiritual energy exuding golden brilliance suddenly took shape. Suspended in midair, the long sword rotated slightly, and the tip of the sword pointed at the place where Yong-kai was. Golden sword. Yong-kai grinned. It's interesting. Clank clank clank. The sound of zhenwu appeared one after another, interrupting Yong-kai's soliloquy. The next moment, hundreds of golden swords suddenly appeared in all directions, each of which was carved out of the same mold, without distinction, and any golden sword exudes an extremely sharp aura, as if it can cut mountains and mountains, cut seas and waves. Gudong. Yong-kai couldn't help swallowing his saliva, his expression became a bit difficult. The gold master is sharp, so many gold swords appear together, each one is full of strong hostility, which really makes Yong-kai not happy. Not only that, but there are more golden swords condensing. In the blink of an eye, the sky and the ground, front, back, left, and right, Yong-kai seemed to be wrapped in a sea of golden swords in an instant. Like a lonely boat, there is a danger of overturning at any time. After the countless golden swords appeared, they didn't kill Yong-kai at the first time. Instead, they made a sound in unison, warning them spiritually, and the gathered sword intent seemed to be terrifying. To shatter the sky and turn the universe upside down. Yang Kai was unmoved, but his expression was serious and he was ready. After 3 breaths, a golden sword trembled, and soon spun at a high speed, leaving afterimages in place, as if controlled by an invisible big hand, breaking through the obstacles of space, and blasting at Yang Kai in an instant body. Millions of swords had already been sacrificed, and the supreme sword intent burst out, and Yang Kai swung the long sword to defend himself like gold. But this kind of defense only lasted for a breath before it was broken. Ding ding dang, a light sound. When the sparks splashed, Yang Kai's door opened wide, and more golden swords came to kill together, as if to smash Yang Kai to pieces. Yang Kai was shocked. Even though he didn't underestimate the power of these golden swords, he still underestimated them. In a hurry, he hurriedly activated the Immortal 5 Elements sword chi to linger around him, but he was destroyed in an instant. Chi 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 chi. A soft sound came, and Yang Kai was soon dressed in rags and was in a state of embarrassment. There was even a bloody wound on his cheek, exposing bones and blood, which looked extremely terrifying. After a round of volley, the golden sword became much more stable and did not attack again. The way of the sky, the damage is more than enough to make up for the deficiency. For the will of this world, it will not do everything but let Yang Kai retreat as much as possible. Yang Kai has experienced this kind of scene for countless times, so he is naturally familiar with it. So even though he suffered a little setback, he didn't intend to stop there, but urged the mysterious boundary orb to devour the law of this place even more vigorously. The world was outraged. Countless golden swords exuded a more astonishing sword intent than before, spinning more and more violently. Whoosh! With a soft sound, the golden sword attacked again. Yang Kai had been prepared for a long time, and shouted in a deep voice, "Dragon transformation!" The original power of Jin Shenglong suddenly appeared, and the huge golden dragon head disappeared behind Yang Kai, and threw it into his body. The next moment, Yang Kai's figure skyrocketed, and his body, which was already taller than ordinary people, suddenly grew to more than 3 feet, a piece of scales emerged from the exposed skin, and a fleshy bun was bulging on both sides of the head, as if something was about to burst out of it. The hands are shaped like dragon claws, unparalleled in sharpness, the back has a dragon tail, and the Fei Hong ink dragon armor is worn on the body, which is majestic and majestic. During this period of time, whenever he had free time, Yang Kai was practicing the real dragon transformation secret technique, and with the help of the original power of the golden sacred dragon, this secret technique was more effective in practicing it. Today, Yang Kai's use of the dragon transformation secret technique seems to be more effective than the last time. Stronger. When he transformed into a dragon in front of Hua Qingxi last time, Yang Kai remembered that his height was only 2 feet, but now he is 3 feet tall. If you continue to practice, you will probably become even taller. If it weren't for the Emperor treasure of Fei Hong Melangia, Yang Kai would probably be clean again at this moment. It took only a moment for the dragon to transform, and the thousand golden sword had already struck before his eyes. The dragon's claw stretched out, and grabbed a dozen golden swords. With a little force, with a click, all these golden swords turned into fluorescent lights and disappeared. To be continued. Chapter 2797 5th Floor Entrance. 2 days later, a dragon chant spread across the sky. Yang Kai's eyes widened and his body was covered in blood, as if he had experienced hundreds of life and death fights. The secret of dragon transformation was still maintained, except for the place covered by Fei Hong's ink dragon armor. There are wounds in other places, hundreds of thousands of large and small wounds are extremely terrifying, and even the dragon horn on the forehead is broken. -1. Although the breath is weak, the fighting spirit is as hot as fire. In front of him, a huge golden blade with a length of more than 100 feet stood in the air, confronting it from a distance, and the frightening sword intent seemed to be able to split the space. In 2 days of effort, Yang Kai fought desperately against this gold system world, resorted to all means, took countless panacea, and finally persisted until now. If it wasn't for his strong background and extraordinary physical fitness, he would have been excluded or killed by this world long ago. It's really fun to be an enemy of the world. However, Yang Kai is already at the end of his strength, and accordingly, this world is not much better. For 2 days, the mysterious boundary orb has been devouring the laws of this place and the aura of heaven and earth, and wasting the spirituality of this world. If it wasn't for Yang Kai's long battle, the consumption was huge, and the situation of ebb and flow alone would be enough for him to conquer this world. One world. But it's almost time to call it a day. Come on, the last blow, let's see who dies. Yang Kai stared at the golden giant blade and laughed. As if in response to his provocation, the golden giant blade buzzed and slashed down at Yang Kai. This blow was the last blow to gather strength in this world, and this blow was also the last hostile manifestation of this world. Such a terrifying blow is enough to overwhelm the river and shatter the void. A huge jet black scar appeared in the sky, like a wound that could not be healed. Yang Kai let out a furious roar, advancing instead of retreating, while the dragon's tail flicked, his figure greeted him like a cannonball. The high-pitched dragon chant sounded, and the golden dragon figure appeared, wrapping Yang Kai's whole body. The body of the giant dragon is also hundreds of feet long, lifelike, when shaking its head and tail. Thunder and lightning. Boom-a. There was a deafening sound, and violent fluctuations of power swept around, and the space with a radius of 100 miles was shattered inch by inch. Two dazzling golden lights burst out in midair, and Yao couldn't open his eyes. The whole world was filled with a golden ocean. Click. At the same time as the crisp sound came out, a huge crack appeared first on the golden giant blade, and soon, with this crack as the origin, dense gaps covered the golden giant blade densely like spider webs. There was a crash. Like a mirror being broken, the golden giant blade suddenly shattered and turned into specks of fluorescent light, filling the world. Yang Kai went fast and came back fast. His whole body was blasted into the ground like a meteorite falling from the sky. Even the phantom of the giant dragon covering its body suddenly shattered. It fell heavily on the ground, bounced up again. Yang opened his mouth, blood spurted out, the whole person was almost exhausted, lying on the ground motionless. Only the mysterious boundary orb is still devouring the law and aura of this place continuously. After a long while, Yang Kai let out a groan, and when he moved a little, his whole body ached. It just feels like all the bones in my body are broken. He quickly took out the elixir from the space ring and took it, tried his best to sit up cross-legged, silently practicing the profound arts. Half a day later, Yang Kai got up slowly. His face was still pale. The previous battle had consumed him too much, and he might have to cultivate for a while, but he couldn't stay here anymore. He clearly felt that the world was about to collapse, and the space around him had become unstable. Take back the mysterious boundary orb. Yang Kai stared at this world for the last time before returning to the buffer zone. Another day later, Yang Kai rushed into a cloud of dazzling green light, and entered a world where the laws of wood were distorted. In this world, Yang Kai met an old acquaintance, a mandrill. Not just one or two, but in droves, thousands. The vitality of the wood mandrill is extremely strong, and the seeds of the wood mandrill have the ability to parasitize. Any wood mandrill is extremely difficult to kill. It's a pity that I ran into Yang Kai. What mandrill is most afraid of is fire-type exercises and secret techniques. Although Yang Kai is based on space supernatural powers, he started with fire-type exercises when he first entered martial arts, and he also practiced the fire of divine consciousness. It can be said that the wooden mandrill has encountered a natural enemy. In this world, what Yang Kai encountered was much better than in the world where the laws of the gold system were distorted. Single-handedly sticking to the same place, under the cover of the fire of divine consciousness, the wooden mandrill could not get close at all. It took another 2 days of hard work, and the mysterious boundary pearl swallowed up the laws of this world. Returning to the buffer zone, Yang Kai didn't stop. He didn't want to waste any time, and purposefully searched for the 5 elements law. The huge waves in the world of water law, the cages in the ocean, and the earth and stone puppets in the world of earth law, each of them has the power to destroy the country, but they were all cut by Yang Kai's sword one by one. 25 days after entering the 5-color pagoda, in the world of the fire system law, Yang Kai looked solemn, and swung down 1,000,000 swords, pouring the sword light condensed by all the Emperor Yuan to break through the body of the ancient flame demon in front of him. The law of space is ups and downs, hidden in the sword light. The broken space turns into a vortex, forming black holes one by one, sucking the remnants of the ancient Balrog into it one by one. The Balrog howled terribly, as if unwilling to accept such a fate, but still couldn't get rid of the swallowing of space, and finally disappeared. Yang Kai exhaled softly. The ancient Balrog encountered in the fire system world. The round attack power is not as sharp as the gold system world, the round defense power is not as strong as the earth system world, and it is not as flexible as the water system world. There is no such thing as the number of wood mandrills in the wood system world. Its most troublesome thing is that almost immortal body. No matter how serious the injury is, as long as one absorbs some fire energy, it can be healed. Fortunately, Yang Kai's spatial supernatural powers can exile it into the endless void, otherwise I'm afraid I really don't know how to kill it. The ancient flame demon was exiled, and the greatest threat to the fire system world disappeared. Yang Kai relaxed all of a sudden, concentrated on urging the mysterious boundary orb, devouring the fire system law here. According to his previous conjecture, the reason why Xuanjiaju failed to take the last step was because the 5 elements were incomplete. Since the 5 elements are incomplete, it is enough to make up the 5 elements. He also took action. The laws of gold, wood, water, fire, earth, and 5 elements are all swallowed up. Today's mysterious boundary bead is filled with 5-color brilliance, connecting the sky and the earth, and it is magnificent. The power of the 5 elements generates and restrains each other, and the cycle is endless. It seems that some miraculous changes are taking place. Yang Kai has a little more confidence in his guess. One day later, the fire system laws of this world were completely swallowed up, and the world was about to collapse. Yang Kai put away the mysterious boundary orb, and didn't have time to find out what kind of changes it would have. He didn't return to the buffer zone like the previous few times, but galloped towards a certain direction while his body was swaying. There is a void corridor there. It should be the entrance to the 5th floor. For more than 20 days, Yang Kai shuttled through dozens of broken spaces, and finally encountered an entrance, so naturally he couldn't let it go. He really wanted to know what was on the 5th floor of the 5-color pagoda. Secretly on guard, Yang Kai plunged into the void tunnel, and his body immediately felt a sense of weightlessness. But soon he was on the ground, and before Yang Kai observed the environment he was in, he suddenly noticed a pair of sharp eyes looking at him. Yang Kai's expression froze, and the Emperor's Yuan suddenly turned around. Looking up, he couldn't help being a little stunned. Brother Lei. The person looking at him was Lei Ting. To meet Thunder here, Yang Kai was really surprised. You really came to the 5th floor. Lei Ting was not surprised at all. Instead, he grinned and said with a look of anticipation, I wasted my time waiting for you here for more than 10 days. Yang Kai frowned and asked, Brother Lei is waiting for me. Why? Lei Ting was furious. Don't pretend to be stupid, you and I haven't finished the battle yet, could it be that you want to be that shrinking turtle? Yang Kai was surprised, and immediately laughed and said, I thought, we have already finished fighting. Lei Ting snorted, if there is no winner, how can the fight be over? Why do you have to decide the winner? Yang Kai asked back. Lei Ting said, of course it is. At this point, he suddenly waved his hand and said, what are you doing so much, let's talk after the fight. When the words fell, he punched Yang Kai involuntarily, and the electric snake swam on the fist, and there was a crackling sound. The power and influence were astonished. Yang Kai took a step forward indifferently, and greeted him without changing his face. Lei Ting's fist was instantly fixed in front of him, and the free electric arc caused Yang Kai to stand up. What are you doing? Lei Ting glared at Yang Kai, do you know that if I don't close my punches enough, I will die? Just now he punched out. Yang Kai didn't retreat but advanced. The key is that Yang Kai didn't intend to gather any strength, and let him hit him, as if he didn't resist. This made Lei Ting feel like punching cotton, although he wanted to give Yang Kai a hard lesson, but if the other party didn't fight back, what's the point of fighting? What he needs is a real fight, a straight victory. Yang Kai said lightly, Brother Lei is powerful, I am willing to bow down. The veins on Lei Ting's forehead twitched, and he felt a volcano brewing in his chest, which seemed to burst out at any time. Yang Kai turned a deaf ear, passed him and glanced forward, then looked back, and said, what is this place? How can there be a long corridor? It was only at this moment that he realized that the place he was in was a long corridor, and there was a space magic circle where he appeared. The end of the long corridor was pitch black, like a beast with its mouth open. Lei Ting murmured. The location between the 4th floor and the 5th floor, you can reach the 5th floor by crossing this long corridor. As for what is there, it depends on one's luck. Yang Kai touched his chin, thought for a while, and said to himself, it's somewhat similar to the 4th floor. There is also a buffer zone on the 4th floor, but not everyone can enter it, that is, myself, who has practiced space magic and repelled the pulling force, so he can stay in the buffer zone. To be continued. Chapter 2798 Things in the Bag. Phone reading. The long corridor in front of me is the buffer zone on the 5th floor, and anyone can come in, provided that the entrance can be found on the 4th floor. No wonder Lei Ting waited here, it turned out that he had expected to come to the 5th floor. Brother Lei, don't you want to go in and take a look? Yang Kai glanced at the deep and dark entrance, and asked with his head tilted. Not in a hurry, Lei Ting replied lightly. Yang Kai pinched his fingers and said, if I remember correctly, this 5-color pagoda experience will end in a few days. If you don't hurry up, I'm afraid there will be no chance. Lei Ting sneered. That's only for you. He is the nephew of the great elder of Xingshan Palace, and he is also one of the leaders of the younger generation of Shenggong. The 5-color pagoda is opened every 3 years, and he can enter almost every time he wants. Of course he is not in a hurry to explore the 5th floor. On the contrary, Yang Kai got this opportunity by chance. If he didn't hurry up, he might not have the chance to come to 5 Colors Pagoda again in the future. It's true. Yang Kai rubbed his chin, smiled and said, since that's the case, then I'll take a step first. Where are you going? Lei Ting yelled loudly, locking Yang Kai firmly with all his energy, as if he would make him look good if he dared to move. Yang Kai frowned, and said impatiently, Brother Lei, you and I have no grievances, why are you so aggressive? Lei Ting sneered and said, we have no grievances or enmities, but you are a rare opponent, so you can't just miss it. Yang Kai thought for a moment, looked at him seriously and said, is this just an excuse? The biggest reason is Her Royal Highness. Lei Ting blushed, waved his hands and said, what are you talking about? Stop talking nonsense. Yang Kai grinned and smiled. It can be seen that Brother Lei is very caring and admiring for Her Highness the Princess. Brother Lei is afraid that my appearance will arouse Her Highness's interest, so he wants to use force to show his strength. Let Her Highness treat you differently. Quote. Lei Ting said with an embarrassed expression, so obvious. Yang Kai pointed to his eyes and said, I'm not blind. After being pointed out by Yang Kai, Lei Ting seemed to be a lot more free and easy, letting go of his posture and said, you are right. Zuner and I grew up together, and I have never seen her be so enthusiastic about any man. The kindness you give it feels very dangerous, so I have to treat it seriously. There was a flash of light in Yang Kai's eyes, and he smiled and said, that's a great honor. But Brother Lei, you made a mistake. He kept shaking his head. Lei Ting asked in a daze, where did you make a mistake? Yang Kai said sternly, Your Highness is beautiful, easygoing, and lovable, but what is your status and vision? How can you just fall in love with a man casually? It's a matter of men and women. Not only do you want to be sympathetic, even more so. Lei Ting thought for a moment, nodded and said, well, you are right. Yang Kai continued, Brother Lei and His Royal Highness are childhood sweethearts, and they should know her temper best. Moreover, you and Elder Lei are uncles and nephews. Elder Lei is the elder of Shenggong. Above people, Brother Lei's status is barely worthy of Her Highness the Princess. Being well matched is naturally not a problem. As long as Brother Lei can capture the heart of Her Highness, he will naturally achieve good things. Lei Ting laughed loudly and said, I didn't see it. You're quite interesting. His face suddenly turned cold, and he changed the topic suddenly. Do you think I'm a fool? Just say a few words casually and I'll believe you. Yang Kai was stunned and sighed. Brother Lei, I just want to tell you that I am not your enemy is someone else. Lei Ting snorted, who? Yang Kai blinked and said, who else can it be? Xiao Chen. Brother Lei, don't you know that there is a saying that the moon is the first to get close to the water? When you and I are facing each other here, Brother Xiao is afraid that he is accompanying the princess. Moreover, Xiao Chen is not inferior to you in terms of cultivation and background. I have also seen Xiao Chen accompany Her Royal Highness several times, taking care of her. There is a difference between men and women, and they have been together for a long time. Naturally, they will fall in love with each other for a long time. I will ask Brother Lei if you are afraid. Lei Ting sneered continuously, Xiao Chen. Just rely on him. What is he? I, Lei, can kill him casually, but you. Well, Zuner's attitude towards you is very disturbing. During the speech, squeezed his fist, and there was a crackling sound, and approached Yang Kai with a smirk on his face. Don't worry, I don't want your life, at most I will maim you. As long as I get rid of you, I will make you useless from now on. If Yan appears in front of Zuner again, Zuner will be in my pocket. Oh, Yang Kai frowned, and asked seriously, Brother Lei knows that disaster comes from his mouth, is it really good to say such irresponsible words? Lei Ting curled his lips and said, there is no need to say anything more, hurry up and fight. So I am actually in the bag for Senior Brother Lei. A clear and pleasant voice suddenly came from behind Lei Ting. Lei Ting's ferocious face instantly froze, and the hairs all over his body exploded. His fighting spirit seemed to be poured from head to toe by a basin of cold water, cooling down his heart. Gudong swallowed hard, cold sweat poured down Lei Ting's forehead like a waterfall, turned his head mechanically, only to see Lan Xuan and Xiao Chen standing side by side on the space magic circle. The former looked at him indifferently. While the latter had a look of sneer and gloating. When Lei Ting was terrified, he felt his heart sinking, as if he was about to fall into the purgatory of the nine nethers, and he would never be able to turn over, and he kept crying in the depths of his heart, "It's over, it's over, it's over. It's all over," and Zuner hears her words, and I'm afraid she won't give him any good looks in this life. The most unbelievable thing for him was that he didn't notice when there were two more people behind him. If it wasn't for this, he wouldn't be in such a big embarrassment. It's Yang Kai. He was deliberately diverting his attention. By the way, he activated the law of space just now. At first, he thought he was on guard, but now it seems that what kind of guard is there? It is clearly interfering with his judgment. What? Thunder. You, how can you talk like this? Hurry up and apologize to Her Royal Highness. Xiao Chen was suddenly filled with righteous indignation, and sternly shouted. Lei Ting's face instantly turned red, and he said helplessly, I. Lan Xuan raised his chin slightly and stared at him, as if waiting for his explanation. Lei Ting couldn't say a word at all. I waited for a long time, but finally I gritted my teeth, stomped my feet, and rushed directly to the front entrance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Lei Ting, come back to me, and you want to leave without speaking clearly. Xiao Chen was furious, knowing that Lei Ting would not come back. He kept yelling, but the corner of his mouth curled into a subtle arc. Ha 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 ha. Now Lei Ting is completely useless. Originally he was not good at speaking in front of His Highness the Princess, but now that he has been tricked by Yang Kai, he will probably appear shamelessly in front of Her Highness in the future. The rival in love has been eliminated. Xiao Chen's heart was extremely happy, and he glanced at Yang Kai slowly. He is different from Lei Ting, although Yang Kai is a bit of a threat to him, but he is not too much in his eyes. Yang Kai said something before that is correct, only those who are close to the water can get the moon first. After the five-color pagoda experience, Yang Kai will leave the Star God Palace, and he doesn't know if he will have the opportunity to meet the princess again in the future, and how can there be any threat? Only that idiot Lei Ting would believe his bewitchment. Is it a little cruel? Yang Kai looked at the direction where Lei Ting left, and asked himself while rubbing his chin. Lan Xuan said, it's senior brother Lei who is bothering him. Senior brother Yang doesn't need to be too concerned. Yang Kai smiled and said, forget it, if he can stand up to the word of breaking love, his achievements will definitely be higher in the future, and it will be a test. Lan Xuan pursed her lips and smiled, and looked at him with beautiful eyes. Senior brother Yang's words seemed to be out of emotion. Yang Kai coughed lightly. Life experience is a little richer. Xiao Chen watched coldly from the sidelines. Seeing that the two were fighting fiercely, he had a bad heart, so he jumped out and said, Brother Yang also found the entrance, congratulations. It's just a coincidence. Yang Kai smiled slightly, and looked at them suspiciously. It's you, how did you get together? Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Fate. After entering the fourth floor of the five-color pagoda, he has been looking for Lan Xuan. During the period, he walked through more than a dozen broken spaces, and finally found it a few days ago, and took the job of a flower protector. Lan Xuan said, it's only a few days before the 1-month deadline, and the fifth floor is ahead. Should senior brother Yang go to see it? Go, of course. Yang Kai nodded, and said, I just don't know the difference between the fifth floor and the fourth floor. Lan Xuan said, of course there are differences. Solution. Yang Kai asked humbly. Xiao Chen interjected. The space on the fourth floor is a piece of broken world, and the laws of heaven and earth are not perfect. Although there are many spaces on the fifth floor, they are not like the fourth floor, but one by one. Independent secret realm. Secret realm. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. Xiao Chen said, that's right. Those secret realms were born out of the broken worlds of the first few floors. When the ancient powerful men refined the five-color pagoda, they combined many broken worlds to form the first 4 floors of the five-color pagoda. The remaining secret realms in the shattered world have been extracted and placed on the 5th floor. Yang Kai pondered for a while, and said, so, the secret realm in the 5th floor may be related to a broken world in the first 4 floors. That's true, but it's not very relevant. There are various secret realms on the 5th floor, just like the countless broken worlds on the previous floors. It's luck to enter which kind of secret realm, and you can't choose it yourself. Yang Kai was stunned for a long time before sighing. the 5-color pagoda is really amazing. Before he knew the truth about the 5-color pagoda, Yang Kai only felt that its existence was of great significance to the Star God Palace, but now that he knew everything about it, he realized that it was simply a treasure. Hundreds of millions of warriors in the Star Realm are all cultivating, and what they want is nothing more than chance. As for where the opportunity comes from, the secret realm is the biggest source. To be continued. This book comes from A&A-C1/2. Chapter 2799 on you. Phone reading. It is as difficult for ordinary people to find a secret realm. Many martial artists will never have the opportunity to enter a secret realm to experience treasure hunting in their lifetime, but here in the Star God Palace, there are countless secret realms waiting to be developed. Please search A%IIC1/2 to see the most complete. The fastest updated novel. Does the Great Emperor's sect have such a terrifying background? Lan Xuan smiled slightly, and said, Brother Yang, Jinjia Tianshu, remember. Yang Kai laughed and said, I'm not old yet. This thing was taken away by Lan Xuan not long ago, how could Yang Kai forget it? It was also because Lan Xuan took away the golden armor book that Yang Kai had the opportunity to enter the 5-color pagoda to practice for a month, and what happened not long ago, Yang Kai naturally still remembers it fresh. But when she brought up the golden armor book at this time, it was obviously not just casually, but Yang Kai's expression changed, and he asked, could it be that the golden armored heavenly book is related to the 5 colors pagoda? Lan Xuan nodded and said, that's right. The golden armored book is exactly Mr. Tan. Tan Junhao brought it out from the secret realm on the 5th floor of the 5-color pagoda, and it is not only a powerful emperor's treasure, but also opened up that secret realm. Key. Yang Kai was surprised. That is to say, the secret realm was originally on the 5th floor of the 5-color pagoda, but because Tan Junhao brought out the golden armored book, the disciples of the Star God Palace can enter the secret realm to practice without passing through the 5-color pagoda. Gone. That's right. Lan Xuan nodded. The secret realm originally existed on the 5th floor of the 5-color pagoda. Normally, if you want to enter it, you have to pass through the 4th floor and have luck. But since Tan Junhao brought once out of the golden armored heavenly book, disciples can freely enter and exit it. Tan Junhao's luck is not small. Yang Kai was amazed. Lan Xuan smiled slightly. According to my father's speculation, many of the secret realms on the 5th floor should have their own keys like that secret realm. As long as you can find the key, you can open the entrance to the secret realm anytime and anywhere, allowing disciples get into it and practice. Yang Kai shook his head and said in shock, there is such a thing. Xiao Chen's face suddenly changed. Quietly beside Lan Xuan, he said, Your Highness, you have talked too much. This matter is a secret of Xingshan Palace, although it is not a top secret. But it is not something that can be revealed casually to others. However, Lan Xuan's status is different, so no one can blame her for saying this. Lan Xuan shook his head and said, It doesn't matter. Anyway, the key can't be found casually. I have been exploring the shrine for so many years, but after looking around, I only found the key of a secret realm. Yang Kai thought about it seriously, and then cupped his fists and said, I have been taught. Lan Xuan pursed her lips and said with a smile, After talking so much, time has been wasted a lot. Senior brother Yang, let's advance to the 5th floor. Yang Kai nodded and said, All right. Junior sister Lan, please. Lan Xuan looked serious, and said, One thing is good to teach senior brother Yang that in the many secret realms on the 5th floor, anything can happen, and senior brother must stick to his heart and not be deceived by external things. Move. I remember. Yang Kai nodded. While speaking, the three of them had come to the end of the long corridor. Looking around, there was a group of rotating nebulae at the end of the long corridor, which seemed mysterious and unpredictable. A strange breath came from the nebula, giving people an extremely uncomfortable feeling. Senior brother Yang, little sister is going to take a step first. Take care, and see you outside. After Lan Xuan said to Yang Kai, he jumped into the nebula and disappeared. Xiao Chen sighed standing on the spot, seemed a bit depressed. This time he had a hard time finding Lan Xuan on the 4th floor, and wanted to accompany her until the end of the experience, but who knew that Lan Xuan insisted on coming to the 5th floor. Now we have to separate again. Taking a leisurely glance at Yang Kai, Xiao Chen had no interest in talking to him. Also jumped into the nebula. Soon only Yang Kai was left on the spot. Time is running out. Yang Kai naturally has no hesitation. Anyway, Lan Xuan and Xiao Chen both went in, so he naturally had to follow. The moment he stepped into the nebula, Yang Kai immediately activated the space law, trying to see if he could stay in a buffer zone like the 4th floor. If this is the case, then he has a lot of room to control, and he can choose a secret realm that suits him to practice. But this time he was a little disappointed. There was no reaction at all under the activation of the law of space. When the vision recovered, Yang Kai's ears immediately heard an anxious cry. "Aniyu, wake up, the beast horde is coming, wake up quickly, why are you in a daze?" At the same time as the voice came, there seemed to be a big hand grabbing his shoulder and shaking it vigorously. Yang Kai was shocked, he didn't know what was going on, and while his face sank, he stretched out his hand and grabbed the opponent's big hand. Unexpectedly, the other party's reaction was extremely fast. Yang Kai had just moved when he was grabbed by the wrist by the other party. Unimaginable violent power came from the other party's hand. Yang Kai's brute force was instantly suppressed in the body, and he couldn't move at all. No. Yang Kai's face changed again, and while he was shocked by the opponent's strength, Emperor Yuan immediately urged him, and then. No response at all. The body is actually empty, there is no trace of Emperor Yuan left. For a moment, Yang Kai was so shocked that his face was pale, and he almost lost his mind. Before entering the secret realm of the 5th floor, Yang Kai was quite confident. After all, his current strength is extraordinary. More than one Emperor Senior 3-layer mirror died in his hands. Even Lan Xuan, Xiao Chen and Lei Ting dared to enter the 5th floor. He has no reason to be afraid of the 1st layer of secret realm experience. He felt that even if he encountered any danger, he would not have to worry about his life. With the law of space in his body, wouldn't he be able to run away if he couldn't beat it? But this sudden change left him at a loss. Why is Di Yuan gone? Without Emperor Yuan, is it still Emperor Senior Realm? Not even a beginner warrior. What is happening? In shock, Lan Xuan's previous words echoed in his ears. In the many secret realms on the 5th floor, anything can happen, brother must stick to his heart and not be moved by external things. Yang Kai was refreshed, and his expression calmed down in an instant. Don't panic, let's figure out what's going on first. Maybe there is a law to suppress one's own strength in this secret realm, so I can't feel any trace of Emperor Yuan. And although the master who grabbed his wrist was extremely powerful, he was not hostile or malicious, so he shouldn't be a threat to him. Looking up, I saw a pair of red eyeballs close at hand, full of bloodshot eyes, the field of vision spread, and a face covered with beards was printed in my eyes. This is a young man, about the same age as himself, but his appearance is extremely rough, his figure is not human-like, and he is a little different from the people Yang Kai usually sees, and seems to have other bloodlines. The clothes are also extremely simple, just wrapped in animal skins, covering the vital parts, and the rest of the body is exposed. The muscles of the body are like iron, and the grave is high, and it is full of explosive power at a glance. Look at yourself again, your thin arms and legs, compared with this young man, you are like a world away. Having said that, although Yang Kai's figure is not burly, he is still strong, but the other party is too strong. But, why would there be a living person? Is this a dream or an illusion of a secret realm? It can't be a dream, but if it's an illusion, it's too realistic. Yang Kai can't feel any false elements from the bearded young man in front of him, as if he is a living, flesh and blood person. And the environment here is also very simple. It seems to be just a dilapidated wooden house. There is no decoration in the wooden house, a simple bench made of tree roots, a table made of several wooden boards, pots and pans next to it, walls a few pieces of unknown animal meat were hung on it, blackened by the smoke, there were some wild vegetables in the wooden basket, and some leftovers in a stone bowl. What is this place? Just when Yang Kai was thinking about it, the bearded young man yelled at Yang Kai, "Are you stupid? I told you that the beast tide is coming, did you hear that?" The voice was full of anxiety and deafening. Yang Kai nodded dumbly. "I heard it. If you hear it, hurry up and help. The village is short of manpower, and the defense is about to be breached." While the bearded youth was speaking, he grabbed Yang Kai out and galloped all the way, walking like flying. Yang Kai took the opportunity to say, "I haven't asked for advice yet." The bearded man paused, and looked back at Yang Kai. The man with the animal-like crimson eyes felt terrified. After a while, the young man sighed, "Are you stupid again?" "I'm Ahu." Yang Kai's mouth twitched and asked, "You said my name is Aniyu." "Aniyu, ah, your mother's cow. My own name is Aniyu, what kind of bullshit secret realm is this? The other party's name is Ahu, which is simple enough. I don't have time to tell you this, hurry up and help, I'll talk to you after the beast tide is over." Ahu hurriedly pulled Yongkai and ran. Not far from the wooden house, there were bursts of yelling and shouting in the ears, and there were bursts of beast roars not far away, resounding through the sky, and even the earth seemed to be shaking and roaring. Yongkai looked around and was shocked. I saw the people running around. The men were all like Ahu, with a burly body and a body like an iron tower. All of them seemed to have infinite strength. Even those women had big arms and round waists. They were incredibly strong. A healthy woman, resisting a huge stone with a diameter of 2 feet, ran like flying, as light as nothing. Yongkai did not feel any power fluctuations from her body. In other words, she just relied on the strength of her body to lift the stone. Resisted. There are also some obviously underage children, who look like teenagers, but they all took up weapons, and their childish faces are full of expressions of hatred and death. Yongkai was about to stare at his own eyeballs. Everyone was in a hurry and gathered in a certain direction. Everyone is wrapped in a few pieces of animal skins, and the simplest clothes are not seen here. Yongkai looked down and found that he was the same. The exposed skin was as white as snow, in stark contrast to Ahu's blackness. Forget it, it's just a small section. Yongkai comforted himself inwardly. To be continued. This book comes from A&A-C1/2. Chapter 2800 Ancient Barbarians. There are many wooden houses all around, and the appearance of such a man is simple and rough. Yongkai looked into the distance, and saw that there was a fence wall made of logs and stones not far away. This should be a village, and it looks like a very primitive and ancient village. And the palpitating roars of beasts came from outside the fence. On the fence wall, many villagers stood on it, or picked up boulders and threw them down, or held bows and arrows, and shot them out. The flames of war raged, and there was a smell of blood in the air, which made people feel nauseous. Suddenly, Yongkai's eyes shrank. At one part of the fence wall, a 3-foot-long, extremely strong leopard rushed up like a whirlwind, opened its bloody mouth, and bit the head of a villager, although the villager was also as burly as an iron tower. Struggling hard, but how can I defeat such an existence? After struggling for a while, the leopard bit off his head, and the blood on the neck and neck spurted high like a fountain, which was extremely dazzling under the blazing sun. Surprised and angry, the villagers around the fence roared and rushed towards the leopard. At the same time, more than a dozen sharp arrows flew towards the leopard, and all of them pierced into the leopard's body. Under the pain, the leopard roared endlessly, and its feet were a little unstable. It was thrown off the fence wall by a villager, and the villager also fell down. The ending is unknown. This change caused a corner of the fence to lose its defense in an instant, and the remaining villagers were quite in a hurry, and all of them kept shouting. Quick, quick! Ahu dragged Yongkai all the way to the bottom of the fence, stretched out his hand and threw Yongkai onto the fence, and said to a strong woman standing on the fence, "Awa, ah! The cow is delivered to you." The woman named Awa glanced at Aniu when she heard the words. Her bushy eyebrows frowned slightly, as if a little disgusted, and when she was about to say something, she saw that Aniu had already rushed out towards the gate of the village. Forget it, it's better than nothing. Awa muttered impatiently, stretched out her hand towards Yongkai, and said concisely, "Arrow." Yongkai was stunned for a moment. To be honest, since entering this secret realm, Yongkai was still a little dazed and couldn't get back to his senses. This dazzling change made him unable to sort out the situation he was in now. All he knows is that he inexplicably appeared in this somewhat primitive and ancient village, inexplicably possessed the name Aniu, and was inexplicably involved in a great war of evil. He has ventured into the secret realm many times, but never has the situation been as complicated as this one. Faintly, he felt that the secret realm he had experienced this time seemed to be a bit of a big deal, and he secretly decided to deal with it with all his energy. Maybe there would be some unexpected gains. As for whether these villagers are his hallucinations or what, he has no time to care. The boat is naturally straight when it reaches the bridge, and there is always a solution to the problem. Arrow, are you deaf? Seeing that Yongkai was still in a daze, the woman named Awa couldn't help roaring. Her eyes were as red as Ahu's, full of bloodshot eyes, and the anger and hatred seemed real. Almost congealed. This kind of anger and hatred is not aimed at Yongkai, but the powerlessness of seeing many villagers die at the mouth of wild beasts, with no bones left, but their own bodies are powerless to take revenge. After being yelled at by her, Yongkai regained his strength, quickly looked around, and saw a pile of wooden arrows cut from unknown wood at his feet, each of which was 10 feet long. The baby's arms are thick and thin, and it looks extremely scary. Reaching out to pick it up, Yongkai gasped in surprise, because the wooden arrow was extremely heavy, not inferior to those arrows forged from fine iron. It's hard to imagine how an ordinary person with no vitality can control it. Your mission is to deliver these arrows to me. Awa looked at Yongkai seriously, and shouted, "Do you hear me clearly? Listen clearly." Yongkai nodded obediently, and took the opportunity to look at this woman named Awa. The villagers here are generally rough and old-fashioned, but this woman named Ahua looks handsome, with a fiery figure. Her chest is covered with animal clothes, revealing a deep gully, her waist is enchanting, her belly is flat, her buttocks are upright mellow. Well, if she wasn't born so tall, she would be quite a beauty. However, in this environment of natural selection, it is destined not to be able to give birth to beautiful women from Shaojiabiu, and mortals without strength will eventually die. Awa also has a different kind of beauty like this. Lost the arrow in her hand, Awa immediately bent the bow and pulled the string. The huge bow was instantly pulled into a full moon by her, making the corners of Yongkai's eyes twitch. This huge bow is about to shoot an arrow that is as thick as a baby's arm. One can imagine how huge it is, but it is as light as nothing in Ahua's hand, and it is easy to use. At the same time as the clanging sound sounded, the arrow spun forward and rushed forward, and Yongkai clearly saw the blast of air in front of the arrow. The power of this arrow is so terrifying. A flying giant beast was in midair, and was nailed into the eye socket by an arrow. The 10-foot-long arrow pierced through the skull, bringing up a pool of blood, and the giant beast fell heavily to the ground, struggling to survive. After a few moments, there was no movement. Amazing, Yongkai praised sincerely. Awa looked at him coldly again, and stretched out a hand. Yongkai quickly picked up an arrow from the ground and handed it to her. Awa bent her bow again and drew the string, the arrow missed and flew. Every arrow can kill a giant beast. Ahua's arrow technique is extremely precise. Almost all the arrows are aimed at the eye sockets of those giant beasts, directly penetrating through the giant beast's head. False hair. On the fence, there are more than a dozen archers like Awa. Each of them has superb arrow skills, which made Yongkai amazed. Under such a harsh environment, if the villagers in this village did not have this rare ability, they might not be able to survive here at all. The battle on the fence wall was relatively peaceful. Ahua and other dozen archers bent their bows and set arrows in an orderly manner. There was no need to fight those giant beasts head-on. But outside the village, there were hundreds of villagers holding various weapons. Go shopping and fight with those giant beasts. The sound of animal roars and the sound of human anger are intertwined. Blood splattered, flesh and blood were separated, giant beasts fell one after another, and villagers were killed one by one. The gang staged a life and death battle in front of this nameless village, as if they all had something in common. Daitian's hatred, only if one of them is wiped out, the other will let it go. On the battlefield, an old voice resounded an ancient melody. A hunchbacked old man, holding a crutch, walked casually on the earth full of flesh and blood, accompanied by his rhythmic yelling. Inexplicable brilliance flashed on the crutch, pouring into those people like spirituality. Inside the fighting villagers. Every villager who was shrouded in brilliance suddenly became extremely brave and powerful, as if he had been beaten with chicken blood. His skin suddenly turned red, and there was a layer of dark red light covering his body surface. Knock those monsters to the ground. What was extremely strange was that although the hunchbacked old man looked weak, but he walked in the battlefield without any defense, those giant beasts turned a blind eye to him, as if they couldn't see him at all. Yongkai's eyes widened, and he lost his voice. Barbarian. Barbarian. Ancient barbarian. He didn't know where this seemingly primitive and ancient village was, but after seeing the old man's miraculous methods, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration and vaguely realized something. It is rumored that in the ancient times, when warriors were not yet popular, natural disasters and man-made disasters continued, and human beings fought against the sky in order to survive. Thus was born barbarism. The barbarians in ancient times paid attention to the cultivation of the physical body. It is rumored that if the physical body is cultivated to the extreme, it can almost become a holy body, immortal, and it is not inferior to today's emperor. In that era, there were no endless secret techniques, no dazzling secret treasures and props, and all people could rely on was their own flesh and blood. The humans of that era were called the ancient barbarians, and they were also the ancestors of today's human race. Among the barbaric arts, the most famous and practical one is the bloodthirsty art. Just like what the old man is doing now, he uses inexplicable power to stimulate the power in the human race, and burns blood essence to obtain a leap-like improvement. But the bloodthirsty technique has huge hidden dangers. Once it is used, it will not only lead to long-term weakness afterwards, but also affect the lifespan. If it is used too many times, it may directly cause death. Because of the bloodthirsty technique, what is burned is the innate blood essence in the human body. No wonder the villagers here all look extremely rough and old-fashioned. It seems that this is not the first time that this bloodthirsty technique has been performed. If the innate blood essence is consumed, people will undoubtedly age faster. Among the ancient barbarians, only a very small number of people had the opportunity to master barbarian arts, and most of them could only practice hard in the flesh. Those who can practice barbaric arts are called witches. Brutality, also known as witchcraft. That old man is undoubtedly a witch, but Yang Kai doesn't know what level of witch he is. After all, these things are old, and Yang Kai only heard about them occasionally after wandering in the star world for a long time. The division of power in the distant age, how did he know? It turned out to be an ancient barbarian, it turned out to be witchcraft. In other words, the place where I am now is the ancient times. How is this possible? The ancient times have been too long since the present, and have long been annihilated in the long river of history, but this secret realm has maintained a complete ancient legacy. Is this place real, or fake? Is your name really Aniu? Then what happened to Yang Kai? Are you dreaming? The village chief is a witch, you just found out today. What have you been doing all these years? After hearing Yang Kai's words, Awa couldn't help but cursed, and spit flew over her head and face. You remember me? Live, there is no waste in the village. If Ahu had not been giving you food all the time, you would have starved to death. Today you will prove to me the value of your existence. Don't embarrass Ahu. To be continued. This text provided by Breaking Dawn Update Group at ch8296929 Dian Hanji. Chapter 2801 Arrows Without Vein. Chapter 2801. After a pause, Ahua's face was icy cold, and she said solemnly, if you can't prove it, you can jump off the wall yourself. When the words fell, an arrow was shot, and the huge force directly blasted the flying giant beast in midair, and the cold and disgusted eyes were still looking directly at Yang Kai's face, without shifting from the beginning to the end. Waste, Yang Kai murmured, looked down at his own figure, and then looked at the figures of other villagers on the fence. Well, this body type is indeed a waste in this era. But the old man with a stooped figure was actually the village head of this village, which made Yang Kai a little surprised. Although he didn't know what kind of witchcraft the village chief used to make those giant beasts turn a blind eye to him, it was definitely not because of his explosive character. As for the witch, the name should be the lowest existence, right? It seems that in this ancient era, the number of witches was really rare. On the fence, Yang Kai and Ahua cooperated seamlessly. After experiencing the initial discomfort, Yang Kai also calmed down, without the initial confusion. In any case, let's get through this level first. Maybe this is a test for the secret realm here. Yang Kai handed the arrows to Awa one by one, and the pile of arrows under his feet decreased at an extremely fast speed, but soon a barbarian youth was holding a spare arrow and replenished it. This boy looks 13 or 14 years old, obviously underage, unable to go into battle and fight giant beasts. He can only do some logistical work, but even a 13 or 14-year-old boy is better than most of the people Yang Kai has come into contact with. To be tall and majestic, the muscles raised in the grave are simply not available for a person of his age. In the village, there are still many underage barbarians like this boy who are busy. Time passed slowly, and a village head cast a bloodthirsty technique, which suppressed the attack of the beast-tide a lot. The villagers paid a very small price and turned the people killed by those giant beasts on their backs, causing countless deaths and injuries. Every villager was extremely excited, as if seeing the hope of victory. The bow and arrow in Ahua's hand was pulled away again and again, and there were bursts of sound of breaking through the air. Yang Kai's brows were wrinkled. Unlike the optimism of these ignorant villagers, Yang Kai felt that the situation was not good for the village. The monsters appeared to be suppressed on the surface, and there were many casualties, but in fact, the villagers were too exhausted, and the long-term and high-intensity fighting made it difficult for every villager to continue. Just look at Awa. At the very beginning, she shot arrows like the wind, arrow after arrow almost without stopping, and each arrow could kill a giant beast. But now, she couldn't even draw the bowstring fully, and the hands holding the bow trembled even more. Several times, it took 2 arrows to kill a giant beast, and the time between shooting arrows was getting longer and longer. This is the case with Awa, and so is the other shooters. The situation of the villagers outside the village is even more worrying. They were blessed with the bloodthirsty technique by the village chief, and overdrawn their innate blood essence. Once the bloodthirsty technique loses its effect and the sequelae break out, the hundreds of villagers fighting outside the village will instantly become covered by giant beasts. It is impossible to have a little resistance. On the other hand, the beast swarm, although the attack is still ferocious, but Yang Kai clearly sensed that the beast swarm was delaying time, as if there was a clever existence commanding the countless beasts, quietly dormant, just waiting for an opportunity to turn defeat into victory in one fell swoop. It's time to make a move. Yang Kai didn't act rashly at first, because he didn't understand his own situation, and didn't know what kind of changes would be caused if he acted rashly, but after waiting and watching for so long, Yang Kai had been infected by the blood of these barbarian villagers. The inexplicably possessed identity of a Niu seems to have become a little more real, and he has a faint sense of belonging to this strange village. These barbarians are all respectable and admirable. They survived tenaciously in ancient times, resisted natural disasters and man-made disasters, and allowed the race to reproduce until now, becoming the mainstream of the world. It is they who have passed on their power from generation to generation, allowing the race to gain a foothold in this world. Guard this land, guard this village. My name is Niu. The blood in the body boiled instantly. Yang Kai bent down and picked up a giant bow next to him. This giant bow originally belonged to another villager, but was bitten off by a giant leopard that rushed up. He stretched out his hand and hooked the bowstring, and there was a clang, as if a war drum was hammering in his heart, making people want to charge forward. Arrow. Ahua stretched out her hand, her red eyes fixed on the front, shining with hatred. But did not get Yang Kai's support. Huodi turned her head. Ahua was about to curse, but the words were stuck in her throat. She stared at Yang Kai and the giant bow in his hand, and said in amazement, "What are you doing?" Yang Kai grinned, showing a mouthful of white teeth, and said, "Take a break, you are too tired." Ahua's outstretched hand was trembling constantly, and her fingers were covered with cut wounds, bloody, which looked shocking. Looking at each other, Ahua exploded in an instant, "Rest. There is no time to rest. Do you know what would happen to the brothers and sisters below without the support of us shooters?" "I know." Yang Kai still smiled, reached out and picked up an arrow, put it on the bowstring, tilted his head and looked at Ahua and said, "So leave it to me." Ahua wanted to say something more, but her eyes widened in an instant, with a shocked expression on her face. God, what did I see? A Niu, who is known as a trash in the village, actually pulled the bowstring. And, it's full of strings. Where did the thin arms and legs come from so much strength? Ahua instinctively felt that she was dazzled, because she clearly remembered that during the last training, Niu struggled to even hold the giant bow and arrow, let alone open the bow and set the arrow. But now, the scene in front of her completely overturned her perception of Niu. Niu in front of him didn't seem to use much strength, because Ahua didn't feel the explosive force from his muscles at all, as if he was just pulling it casually, but he pulled the bowstring that made him feel a little bit strenuous. Open. The string is full, the arrow is released, and Yang Kai's expression is solemn. Ahua involuntarily followed the trajectory of the arrow's flight. In front of the arrow, the air blast of the air blast is clearly discernible. Obviously, this arrow of a Niu contains enormous power, which is not inferior to his own full-strength blow. Such a blow is enough to penetrate the body of any giant beast. Inexplicably, Ahua had a sliver of confidence in the trash in front of her, feeling that under this arrow, she would definitely be able to kill a giant beast. Whoosh! The arrow flew past the body of a giant beast, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. On the contrary, the villagers who fought desperately with the giant beast were taken aback, because just a moment ago, if the arrow missed by a little bit, it could have directly killed him. Ahu turned his head, looked at the people standing on the fence, and shouted, "Ahua, watch!" Ahua opened her mouth with a look of grievance. Did she shoot such a crappy arrow? Even if she closed her eyes, she wouldn't make such a mistake. It was obviously a Niu who did it, okay. After being wronged, he became angry, and stared back at Yang Kai. He actually had confidence in this waste, and he was blind. I feel a little bit. Yang Kai reached out and picked up another arrow while speaking, and put it on the bowstring. This is not a place for you to play around. If you don't want to support me, get out. Ahua yelled angrily. Although this trash can pull the full string and surprised Ahua, what's the use of not being accurate? It's better to go straight down and fight those giant beasts head-on, at least it can play a role. An excellent shooter is one who has undergone arduous training and countless life-and-death fights. Niu obviously does not have these experiences. Trust me, Yang Kai looked at Awa seriously, his hands that pulled the bowstring were as steady as a rock. The anger on Ahua's face froze slightly, and she sighed, shoot where no one is around. Compared with the previous performance of this trash, it is recognized that he can take up the bow and arrow this time and share a little pressure for the village. Yang Kai smiled. This time, the situation just now will not happen again. The target was still the giant beast that was fighting Ahu. When the arrow came out, Ahua almost didn't dare to look at it, for fear of seeing Yang Kai accidentally injuring Ahu. But in fact, when the arrow flew to the ground, the giant beast just jumped up in the air, opened its mouth and roared, and the 10-foot-long arrow was poured into the giant beast's mouth and shot out from the tail, and the terrifying force smashed the giant beast's internal organs. He made a mess, fell to the ground, whimpered, and blood flowed like a fountain. Did you really do it? Awa was stunned, a little dumbfounded. If she remembers correctly, Niu couldn't even draw the bowstring before, let alone shoot an arrow. In other words, this should be the first time he really shoots an arrow. Although the first arrow was a bit off, it was a false alarm, but the second arrow was extremely accurate. What the hell is going on with this piece of crap? When she lost consciousness, Yang Kai had already picked up an arrow again, almost without any pause, pulled the string, and shot out. A giant beast in the distance died instantly. Although in this secret realm, Yang Kai can't feel any trace of Emperor Yuan, but the foundation of being Emperor Senior realm is still there. It's hard to control the giant bow and arrow, but it's okay for an Emperor Senior realm. What? The first arrow is just an experiment. With the standard in mind, the next thing will be easy. Arrows never go unnoticed. A bundle of 10 arrows was lost, and was shot out by Yang Kai in less than 3 breaths, except for the first arrow that failed to make a contribution. The other 9 arrows were killed by arrows. Brother Niu, are you so powerful? The barbarian boy in charge of logistics ran up with a few bundles of arrows, just in time to see the scene of Yang Kai displaying his supernatural power, and immediately adored him. Aren't the adults all spurning Niu, saying that he is a waste in the village, who wastes food without contributing at all, and many adults advocate expelling Niu from the village and let him fend for himself. If it weren't for the kindness of the village chief, Niu would have been feeding his own food to Niu, and Niu would have starved to death long ago. Niu, who is called a waste, is actually so powerful. She seems to be no less than Awa, who is the strongest archer in the village. The young man is full of confusion. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to vote for recommendations and monthly tickets. Your support is my biggest motivation. Mobile phone users, please go to read. Chapter 2802 Destruction. Phone reading. Heavy snow fell. This ancient and primitive world did not know when heavy snow fell, dyeing the field of vision white, and the bright red blood on the ground became more and more shocking. Web links. Under the extremely cold environment, the villagers suddenly didn't realize that everyone's exposed skin was steaming hot. Outside the village, hundreds of villagers fought bloody battles with the giant beasts with primitive weapons such as stone axes and spears. On the fence wall, more than a dozen marksmen gave strong support with their superb skills. The hunched village chief was still running on the battlefield, and his dark crutches burst out with 1 or 2 faint rays of light, using his poor witchcraft to resist the invasion of the beast tide. The blood on the surface of the villagers who have been subjected to the bloodthirsty technique is getting dimmer, which is a sign that the bloodthirsty technique is about to lose its effect. Once the bloodthirsty technique loses its effect, these villagers will fall into long-term depression. Weak and exhausted, no longer able to fight. If the beast horde has not been repelled before then, there is only one fate waiting for the village: a destruction. Hundreds of the strongest warriors will become food for the giant beasts in the winter, and the old, weak, women and children in the village will not escape bad luck. At that time, the giant beast's iron hooves will step over, and the earth will be moaning. The tide of beasts does not retreat, the villagers fight to the end, the home is behind them, and no one will back down. Whizzing a Yang Kai missed 3 times with 1 arrow, and the 3 giant beasts were killed in response. This miraculous method almost made Ahua dumbfounded. If it was said that Yang Kai's bowstring and arrows that were drawn before shocked her, then the scene she saw now made her a little unable to think. My head was completely bewildered. It turns out that bow and arrow can also be played like this. As the most outstanding marksman in the village, she has her own pride. No one in the whole tribe can match her in the competition of archery, but she has never heard of Yang Kai's archery with 3 arrows, and she has never seen it before. Can win. Definitely win. Niu's sudden outburst made Awa see the hope of victory. As long as he can maintain his current state, the mere beast tide is nothing to worry about. Sister Ahua, brother Aniu. It's not good. There are not many bows and arrows left. These are the last 5 bundles. Aunt Lee asked me to tell you so that you can save some of them. The young man in charge of logistics ran up with a few bundles of arrows in his arms, and with a loud roar, Awa fell into an ice cellar. A bundle of arrows is 10 arrows. 5 bundles equals 50 sticks, and if you do your best, you can only kill 50 giant beasts. But how can the number of beasts below 50 be calculated? Ahua's face turned extremely pale all of a sudden. Without the support of these shooters, Ahu and others in the bloody battle below would undoubtedly die. Turning her head and staring at the young man, Awa roared, "Why are there not many arrows left in the warehouse? Didn't you take them out?" The young man cried and said, "It's all taken out, but you've consumed it too quickly. Aunt Lee and the others are speeding up the production, but it's still too late to replenish." Consumed fast? Not fast. Rather, the time was too long. There had never been a beast swarm that lasted for such a long time. The giant beasts did not back down even after paying such a heavy price. This was completely different from the beast swarms encountered before. Looking up at the sky, there is snow like goose feathers, and the cold wind brings the sound of wind horns, echoing in the jungle. It's winter. The beasts have to hoard rations for the winter, otherwise the severe cold environment will make them starve to death in the cave. What to do? What to do? Shocked by this almost desperate news, Awa was on the verge of collapse, biting her pale lips tightly, almost biting blood but didn't realize it. Turning her head and looking out of the village, Ahua's heart felt like a knife was twisted at the villagers who confidently handed over their backs to herself and others. "Here is up to you." Awa was taken aback. Turning his head to look at Aniu, he subconsciously asked, "What?" Yongkai took a deep breath, put down the giant bow in his hand, tilted his head and smiled at Ahua, "I'll come as soon as I go." When the words fell, the man jumped off the fence and rushed towards the battlefield full of blood and internal organs. Ahua's eyeballs widened in an instant, and she opened her mouth to shout. But the cry was lost in the howling cold wind, and I don't know if Aniu heard it. This is courting death. Being able to pull up the bowstring to kill giant beasts, Aniu's performance is certainly not bad, but long-distance shooting and close combat are two different things. Fighting with giant beasts that are often 3 or 4 feet long requires extraordinary physical fitness and the courage to face death. No matter how brave Aniu is, his physical fitness is obvious at a glance. The body shape is not as good as that of the underage children in the village. What can such a person do even if he goes to the battlefield? I'm afraid it's not enough for those giant beasts to stuff their teeth. After getting off the fence, Yongkai picked up a stone axe casually, facing the biting cold wind, stepping on a strange thing mixed with muddy meat and blood, and rushed into the herd of beasts in the blink of an eye. It was as if a newborn sheep rushed into a group of tigers and was submerged in an instant. Awa couldn't bear to look any longer, reached out to pick up a bow and arrow, and secretly decided to avenge Aniu. "Sister Ahua, look," the boy said excitedly, pointing his hand before leaving. Ahua looked in the direction of his finger, and saw giant beasts over there were blown up for no reason, danced in midair, fell to the ground bleeding profusely, and died instantly. More giant beasts were in midair, and their huge bodies burst apart, even splitting into 2. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen giant beasts gathered in one place were swept away, and a not-so-burly figure stood there like a javelin. The stone axe in his hand was full of blood and pieces of internal organs. How come? Awa was dumbfounded. The dozens of sharpshooters on the fence were as dumbfounded as they forgot to continue to support with bows and arrows, and all stared blankly at the weak body. This body, which was criticized by them in the past and even spurned to the point of exile, was as tall and mighty as a barbarian god on the battlefield made of blood and flesh mud. Standing there, he seemed to be able to block all the storms, giving people an unprecedented sense of peace. There seemed to be a loud laugh coming from over there. The wind was too strong to hear clearly, but everyone could clearly see a happy and excited smile on Aniu's face. The movement here quickly alarmed the other giant beasts. Pairs of crimson eyes looked towards this side, and there was a low growl in the feint, and immediately those giant beasts that were besieging the villagers parted to face Yang. "Open up and surround them." With an axe in his hand, Yongkai's momentum rose steadily, his fierce eyes swept over the giant beasts, causing all the giant beasts to pause slightly and stop moving forward. Wild beasts have instincts, and their instincts tell themselves that the person in front of them is not a persimmon. The low roar hidden in the cold wind came again, and the giant beasts took another step. Beside him was the mutilated corpse of a villager. When he was about to die, the villager still tightly grasped his stone spear and stabbed it into the soft belly of a giant beast. Bite off half of the head. The blood has coagulated. Yang Kai stretched out his hand to pick up his stone spear, and with each spear and axe, he tied a flower in his hand, took a deep breath, stomped his feet on the ground, and rushed into the beast like a thunderclap, in the group. Pick, cut, chop, tease. Like an ordinary person who has never practiced before, all of Yang Kai's movements are simple and boring, and the weapons he holds are also the simplest and most primitive stone spears and stone axes. But in the hands of a suppressed emperor, these two simple weapons have the effect of turning decay into magic. Wherever it passed, it was devastated, and none of the behemoths could hit its head straight. One by one, the behemoths were thrown out and fell to the ground. Every behemoth had shockingly huge wounds. That wound was fatal. The sound of whimpering continued, the giant beasts retreated steadily, and the encirclement formed by hundreds of giant beasts was directly torn open by Yang Kai. By the time Yang Kai rushed out, 1/3 of the giant beasts had fallen. In front of him, a rickety old man who had concealed his aura and figure with innumerable figures had a ghostly expression, staring at Yang Kai with cloudy eyes, as if recognizing him for the first time. Because of the great fluctuation in his mind, there was a flaw in his witchcraft, and the figure that had been hiding all this time was revealed, and the giant beast next to him opened its mouth and bit him. If there is an accident, the old man will definitely die. Call out a. A sharp arrow came through the air and directly shot the giant beast to the ground. The crooked old man turned his head and saw Awa slightly nodding at him on the fence over there. Village chief, come one. Yang Kai was covered in blood, with the viscera of those giant beasts hanging on his body, and he was grinning at the old man with a murderous intent. The old man shuddered inexplicably, but he still raised his crutches as he said, and an incomprehensible voice came out of his mouth. With a wave of the crutch, a ray of light shot out, hitting Yang Kai's body. The next moment, Yang Kai felt the blood in his body boil like a fire, and a thick golden light appeared on the surface of his body, making him look solemn and solemn. The shock in the old man's heart was even more serious, a turbulent sea was set off, and the turbid eyes suddenly burst into a bright light. This is the bloodthirsty technique. Yang Kai took a deep breath, clearly feeling the improvement of his own strength, but this bloodthirsty technique seems to have some drawbacks. While strengthening the strength, it actually weakens the feelings of the five senses. That is to say, Yang Kai, with the foundation of Emperor Senior Stage, can ignore this kind of weakening, and ordinary people like Ahu can't resist it. No wonder these villagers who had been subjected to the bloodthirsty technique were all fearless in battle. Of course, their own courage was in it, and the bloodthirsty technique should also be credited. The five sense organs were deprived, they could not feel too much pain and fear, and they were naturally brave in battle. However, this layer of golden light on Yang Kai's body surface is a bit out of the ordinary. Other people's body surface is glowing red after being subjected to the bloodthirsty effect, but he is golden. There is no way. This bloodthirsty technique is to stimulate the innate blood essence in the human body, and the blood in his body is golden. To be continued. This book comes from A&A-C1/2. Chapter 2803. Chapter 2803. Village Chief, take care of yourself, don't run around when you are old, go back and rest. Yang Kai grinned at the old man, turned around, and rushed into the herd of beasts again. The corner of the old man's mouth twitched, and while he was shocked, he did not forget to bless himself with a concealment technique. He is the head of the village, and he is a highly respected witch. Everyone in the village respects and loves him. In the past, this Aniu didn't even have the courage to look directly at him. How dare he talk to him like this today? Aniu didn't contribute anything to the village before, and even took food and housing away. He also thought about expelling Aniu out according to what the villagers said, and letting him fend for himself. But that is a life after all, it is his own villagers. The village chief always felt that one day he would grow up and play his role. But in fact, after so many years, the performance of this Niu is really disappointing. To this day, it has actually bloomed a light that people can't look directly at. God bless you, the gods will appear. The village head opened and closed his lips, muttering to himself, witnessing Yang Kai's return to the herd of beasts, smashing the sea-like herd of beasts to pieces with a single charge. He is like a sharp sword in the hands of a barbarian, wantonly criss-crossing the battlefield, invincible. Even the thick snow couldn't cover up the dazzling golden light. The golden light rushed left and right in the battlefield, and soon plowed out piece after piece of blank areas on the battlefield. The giant beast neighed, terrified, and retreated slowly. The villagers became more and more courageous as they fought. 3 people formed a wall and 5 people formed a shield. The simplest combination attack technique drove the beast out of their homes with senseless bravery. The stone axe and stone spear in Yongkai's hand had been changed one after another. Finally, when the sound of the wind died down and the snowflakes became weaker, the tide of beasts receded, leaving dead bodies and blood all over the ground. The villagers chased for dozens of feet before slowly stopping, and then let out a roar like a beast, which made the scattered and fleeing beasts even more panicked. Win! Won! The villagers cheered and were elated, happy that they survived a beast swarm. Everyone's face was filled with joy, jumping and screaming. "Aniyu, it's really you." Ahu ran out from nowhere, covered in blood. It could be seen that he was not seriously injured, but his abdomen seemed to be bitten. He stared at Yongkai with wide eyes. He patted him heavily on the shoulder. "I thought I was wrong." "How could I be wrong? In the whole village, there is only Aniyu with this body type." Although Ahu had noticed Yongkai's existence before, he couldn't believe it, and he didn't confirm it until now face to face. The surviving villagers also looked at Yongkai curiously, with gratitude and admiration in everyone's eyes. At the last moment, if Yongkai hadn't rushed into the herd of beasts and tried his best to turn the tide, the fate of the village today would have been known. The barbarian world is very simple, the strong is king. This rule has continued to this day, but it lacks the simplicity of the ancient barbarians. This is a gift from the barbaric god. The old village chief walked up tremblingly, holding the pitch-black cane in his hand. Yongkaixin said that this is the credit of this young master, it's nothing to do with the gods. But this must not be said, otherwise no matter how much he contributed to the village before, he would definitely become the enemy of the entire barbarian tribe. Blasphemy against the barbarian gods was the greatest sin among the ancient barbarians. "Village chief, we killed so many beasts this time, shouldn't we celebrate?" Ahu looked at the village chief with great interest, and the other villagers were also full of anticipation. The food in the village is lacking. This time, hundreds of beasts died in the beast tide, enough to feed the village for a long time. A few days ago, the village chief was still worrying about the food for the winter. Few villagers will starve to death, and this year will naturally be no exception. "I just didn't expect happiness to come so suddenly. With the corpses of these beasts, I don't have to worry about food this winter." The village chief smiled slightly, and was about to speak when Yongkai stepped forward and said, "Village chief, don't you think this beast swarm is a bit weird?" The village chief frowned, looked up at Yongkai and said, "You can see it too." Yongkai was stunned. What did the village chief see? The old village chief was silent for a while before he said, "Brutal beast, there is a wild beast that is directing the tide of beasts." As soon as this remark came out, the faces of many villagers changed drastically, because the wild beast is a very powerful existence, only those witches can deal with it, and flesh and blood are nothing in front of the wild beast. It turns out that's called a wild beast. Yongkai followed the words. What he felt was just a monster beast that didn't make sense, and he gave birth to a little wisdom, so he was able to command the beast tide, making this beast tide change. It's so difficult. Winter is coming, and those beasts must be looking for rations. Although we repelled them this time, if we don't kill the grass and roots, they are bound to come back. No matter how complex the villagers changed, they all knew that Yongkai was right. If there were no wild beasts, those beasts would not be a concern, but if there were wild beasts commanding them, the situation would be different. If one day the beast swarm strikes again, it will undoubtedly be another disaster for the village. The village has already lost enough soldiers today, and it may not be able to cope with the next beast swarm. "Village chief, why don't you ask the tribe for help?" Ahu suggested. The village chief shook his head. "If you ask for help, more than half of the spoils you get today will be dedicated to the tribe. Are you willing?" The villagers shook their heads when they heard this. So many people died to get these spoils, and no one would agree to share more than half of them for nothing. In this place, food is the foundation of survival. Then what to do? Ahu frowned. Yongkai Dao, "I'll kill it." While speaking, he turned around and chased in the direction where the beast tide receded. Ahu was shocked, grabbed Yongkai's arm, and said anxiously, "Aniyu, don't be impulsive, wild beasts are not something you can deal with." Yongkai gently opened his hand, smiled and said, "It's just a wild beast, you wait for the good news." Ahu was stunned, because when Yongkai opened his hand just now, he felt a force that shocked him. Is this still the Anu I know? I'm with you, Ahu said and wanted to chase him out, but he felt dizzy and staggered just after taking 2 steps. The bloodthirsty technique was over, and the sequelae were about to explode. At this time, even if he went with Yongkai, it would not be of any use, but would become a burden instead. Watching Yongkai disappear into the wind and snow helplessly, he turned his head and asked the village chief, what's wrong with Anu? The villagers all want to know this question. Today's Anu is almost the same as the one they knew before. The village chief was silent for a long time before he said, the barbarian god bestowed power, and Anu was reborn. The villagers suddenly realized that they seemed to have no doubts about this explanation, and no one even showed a look of jealousy. Yongkai walked alone, carrying the stone axe in his hand. This experience is an experience that has never been experienced before. Live people, live battles, seem to let me break through the shackles of time, return to the ancient times, become a member of the ancient times, and witness the style of this era. He didn't know what he could gain from this experience, but he knew that the village he appeared in was the key, and gaining the favor of the villagers might yield unexpected gains. So he went alone to hunt down the cunning and hateful beast. When the beast horde retreated, it left many clues. The snow was full of footprints of ferocious beasts. Although the snowflakes were big, they didn't have time to bury these traces. Yongkai has been chasing away, and fell behind the herd without spending any effort. However, these guys move very fast, and it may be impossible to catch up in a while. Until the evening, Yongkai chased into a canyon. The heavy snow has stopped, leaving countless footprints and bright red blood on the snow in the canyon. Looking from the outside, the canyon looks like a gourd, small on the outside and big on the inside, surrounded by steep cliffs, and its brilliance is like a mirror. Even in the dark night, Yongkai's eyesight can reach 10 miles away. He saw the end of the canyon, a dead end. Things are easier. Yongkai grinned, not planning to make things too complicated, just a monster with enlightened intelligence. With a golden bloodthirsty light on his body, he stood at the entrance of the canyon, put the stone axe in his waist, and then swung his fists, bombarding the cliffs on both sides. Boom boom boom. The loud noise reverberated in the Calabash Canyon, startling the herd of beasts who had just returned here not long ago. Countless wild beasts roared and boiled, and came galloping from their hiding places one after another. From a distance, a dazzling golden light was seen, and the beasts stopped in unison, watching in horror that the only exit of the canyon was blocked by falling rocks. During the daytime, their companions suffered countless casualties under the hands of this golden light-emitting master. Seeing this familiar and life-threatening golden light at this moment, they were naturally terrified and hesitated. If they could escape, they would run away as soon as possible, absolutely unwilling to meet this golden man. But now the only exit of the canyon is blocked, and they can't escape even if they want to. They have always been the only ones to attack the barbarian villages, but they don't want to be beaten to the door by the barbarians one day. The beasts lacking wisdom and experience are at a loss for a while, and they don't know how to deal with them. At the critical moment, a low roar came from the depths of the canyon. Like an order, the ferocious beasts reluctantly stepped forward and surrounded Yongkai. Yongkai grinned brightly, showing a mouthful of white fangs, took off the stone axe stuck in his waist, and greeted the beasts step by step. A moment later, the killing started again. Where the golden light passed, the herd of beasts collapsed like a bubble, and giant beasts fell into a pool of blood. Yongkai's pace was fast and firm, all the way to the depths of the canyon. Roaring, howling, connected together, the canyon was soon filled with a strong smell of blood, which was extremely pungent. The stone axe in Yongkai's hand had already been shattered. He simply abandoned his weapon, and swung his fists in a round circle. The bones of the beasts he hit with each punch were broken. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to vote for recommendations and monthly tickets. Your support is my biggest motivation. Mobile phone users, please go to read. Chapter 2804 Return of the Hero. Chapter 2804 The Return of the Hero. At dawn, Ahu appeared outside the village with a pale face. He still hasn't recovered from the bloody battle yesterday, especially after the sequelae of the bloodthirsty technique broke out. Even though he is one of the best fighters in the village, at the very least, he will be weak for several days, and within these few days, he will not be able to fight again. He raised his head, rushed to a big tree at the entrance of the village and asked, "What did you see?" A head protruded from the canopy of the big tree. It was the barbarian boy who was in charge of logistics on the fence. "Brother Ahu, I didn't see anything," the boy replied. Ahu frowned, his face full of anxiety. Niu went chasing wild beasts yesterday and did not return all night. People in the village were very worried about him. The young man hid in the canopy of the tree, firstly for vigilance, and secondly because he wanted to investigate Niu's whereabouts, but the young man's answer disappointed Ahu very much. "Didn't the village chief say that Niu has the blessing of a barbarian god? What are you worried about?" Awa appeared behind Ahu with a longbow on her back. Ahu said, "Niu has been blessed with the bloodthirsty technique, and now that night has passed, the bloodthirsty technique must have disappeared, and you also know what consequences this will cause. Even if the barbarian god bestowed the power to make Niu reborn, the sequelae of the bloodthirsty technique cannot be ignored by any barbarian. Once surrounded by the herd of beasts in a weak state, the end will only become the beast's belly thing. It's useless to worry, trust the gods, trust Niu." Awa patted Ahu on the shoulder, turned and entered the village. Although yesterday's battle did not affect the village, there are still many things to be busy. "Brother Ahu, I saw a person." At this moment, the barbarian boy suddenly shouted. "Who?" Ahu raised his head and asked nervously. "I can't see clearly," the barbarian boy replied. "Keep your eyes wide open." Ahu roared. The young man was speechless, thinking that this cannot be seen clearly with widened eyes. But soon, he exclaimed, "It's a wild beast." In his field of vision, he clearly saw the body of the beast, which was approaching at a very fast speed. "What?" Ahu and Ahua turned pale with shock. They looked at each other, and a frightening thought involuntarily appeared in their minds: the village is over. The savage beast went back and forth, but the fate of Niu who chased it can be imagined. The bloody battle yesterday made most of the soldiers in the village lose their strength to fight again. Who can resist the barbaric beast attack at this time? "No, no." The boy changed his words again, his voice trembling with surprise. "It's brother Niu, it's brother Niu." Ahu no longer knew how to scold him, so he said weakly, "Have you seen clearly, is it Niu or a wild beast? One is a man, the other is a beast, what kind of eyesight does it take to confuse them?" Without saying a word, Awa rushed out in an instant, quickly climbed up the big tree with hands and feet, stood on the crown of the tree and looked up. As a sharpshooter, her eyesight is unquestionable. What the boy can't see clearly doesn't mean she can't see clearly either. Ahu stood there anxiously, waiting with his neck up. After a while, Awa lowered her head and smiled. "It's Niu. Niu has returned with the wild beast." Ahu was stunned, and said in disbelief, "A Niu killed the wild beast." Awa had already come down from the tree. She flicked her long braids back, nodded and said, "That's right, Niu killed the wild beast." Ahu smiled with relief, then laughed loudly, and then laughed wildly. Turning around and yelling at the village, "Everyone comes out everywhere, Niu killed the wild beast and came back, Niu killed the wild beast." The villagers who were busy were all taken aback, they couldn't believe their ears, and soon put down their work, and gathered at the entrance of the village, asking each other, "Niu really killed the beast? Who saw it? Ahu, you are not lying to us, are you? Waste Niu has such a great ability. He is not a waste now, thanks to him yesterday, the beast horde will be repelled. He couldn't even draw a bow before, why did he suddenly seem like a different person?" The village chief said that it was the gods who bestowed the power. Yang Kai was carrying the incompetent monster, and before he reached the village entrance, he saw a large group of people gathering there, pointing in the direction he was in. In front of the crowd, Ahu's face was pale, but he waved and shouted to himself with a smile on his face. Awa said that it was Ahu who had been giving him food before so that he would not starve to death. Although Yang Kai didn't encounter this kind of thing personally, but this body in this era has been favored by Ahu, and Yang Kai can feel the care of this barbarian youth for him. He responded with a cry, picked up the savage beast on his shoulder, held it up high, and showed it to the villagers from a distance. The next moment, the villagers shouted and rushed over to welcome the hero's return. In the blink of an eye, Yang Kai was surrounded by hundreds of villagers. Every villager patted him on the shoulder cordially and enthusiastically, their eyes filled with admiration and gratitude, and then they made way for Yang Kai to go straight forward. Row. Yang Kai didn't understand if this was a courtesy, but every time he patted his shoulders, Yang Kai could feel the respect of these villagers. At the entrance of the village, the old village chief appeared leisurely with a cane, his stooped body trembling, and he was about to die. Yongkai followed countless villagers, walked up to the village chief, put the monster on the ground, grinned and said, "Village chief, I killed the wild beast." The village head looked at the beast seriously, nodded and said, "Good job. There is not much praise, but it seems more simple and cordial." Yongkai still grins and smiles. At this time, many barbarian boys and girls gathered around and looked at the savage beast on the ground, as if it was the first time they saw such a cruel thing. Their eyes were full of curiosity. There were also a few bold ones who wanted to reach out to touch it, but were pulled back by their parents staring. At this time, a young girl came out from behind the crowd, holding a bowl of cloudy liquid in her hand, and the faint scent of wine permeated the air. The girl walked up to Yongkai, staring at him shyly. Her cheeks were slightly red, but her eyes were not clear. Moving away, the fiery gaze made Yongkai a little at a loss. Strictly speaking, barbarian women don't quite fit Yongkai's aesthetics, but this girl is a bit different from other women. Even though she is also born extremely tall, it somehow makes Yongkai feel a little bit amazing. Yongkai tilted his head and looked at the village chief curiously. The village head said, "Only the most outstanding warriors in the village are eligible to drink this bowl of mansion wine. You should drink it. This is really wine." Although he could smell the aroma of wine, if the village chief didn't tell him, Yongkai wouldn't be sure that this bowl of turbid and inexplicable liquid was wine. Taking the stone bowl from the young girl's hand, Yongkai drank it all in one gulp. A hot feeling ran through his stomach from his throat, strange power spread from his stomach, and his meridian swayed slightly. Yongkai raised his eyebrows, and before he had time to feel it carefully, he was grabbed by the surrounding villagers and raised his hands and feet high. The villagers shouted Aniu's name, threw him up and caught him, then threw him up again, and caught him again. I don't know how many women's hands recklessly took advantage of Yongkai, touching his exposed muscles and vital parts. Barbarian women have always been so unrestrained and direct, making Yongkai blush. Those young and immature girls are just here to take advantage of it, and there are some old ladies who are clearly aged. Why are you here to join in the fun? The whole village was full of joy, as lively as the Chinese New Year. After a long time, the villagers let the dizzy Yongkai down. Yongkai staggered for a while, only feeling that the sequelae of the bloodthirsty technique were not so strong. The village chief smiled and stretched out his hand to the side, and the boy who had been watching the wind from the tree before immediately untied the stone dagger at his waist and handed it to the village chief. The village chief bent down and dissected the wild beast. It was obvious that the village chief should be well versed in this method and skillful. After a while, he took out a round, fingernail-sized thing from the wild beast and handed it to Yang. Opened the way. "Drink the wine, you will become stronger." Countless villagers showed envious expressions, staring straight at the blood-stained ball. Isn't this an inner alchemy? And it's still a low-level inner alchemy. Yongkai reached out and took it. It turns out that the barbarians in ancient times took the inner alchemy directly, and it was true after all. Martial arts were not prevalent in this era, and the art of alchemy must be in a state of ignorance, so how could it be possible to refine the elixir? Consuming the inner alchemy of monsters directly can increase strength, but there are also hidden dangers. The inner alchemy is the essence of a monster. It stores not only the source of power of the monster, but also the animal nature of the monster. Humans take it, which is very effective. May affect psyche. This beast is your trophy, take it back too. Long-term consumption will also make you stronger. The village chief pointed to the beast brought back by Yongkai. Okay, Yongkai didn't give in. Although he had only been here for a day and hadn't had time to appreciate the ancient style carefully, Yongkai could feel from the straightforward style of these villagers that they are all very sincere and simple people. After a pause, Yongkai said, "By the way, the village chief, there are more than 300 dead beasts in the canyon where I killed the wild beasts. Do you want someone to bring them back? If necessary, I can lead the way." Quote. As soon as this remark came out, many villagers were overjoyed. The village head said, "Of course we can't give up the precious food, but let's wait for a few days to rest, everyone is too tired." Ahu said with a grin, "Village chief, Aniu is back now, and we have food for the winter, so shouldn't we have a good celebration today?" As he spoke, his saliva almost flowed out. Although the other villagers didn't say anything, their eyes looking at the village chief were full of expectation. "Just know how to eat." The village chief raised his crutch and lightly tapped Ahu on the head. Ahu didn't dodge, was hit, touched his head and laughed, with a look of shamelessness. The village head said, "Okay, let everyone eat their fill today." The villagers immediately cheered. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to vote for recommendations and monthly tickets. Your support is my biggest motivation. Mobile phone users, please go to read. Chapter 2805. Annie is 15 years old today. Food is the most important thing for the people, and it is an eternal truth. In the ancient times, being able to eat until full was definitely the most extravagant enjoyment. The barbarians' cooking method is extremely simple, that is to roast. Large chunks of animal meat were skewered on wooden branches, and bonfires were lit in various parts of the village. The villagers grilled these animal meat on fire. The golden color and crackling fat made people move their index fingers. Even though they got the meat yesterday, no one in the whole village, including the village chief, took a bite because everyone was waiting for the hero's return. Now that Aniu is back, it is naturally time to celebrate. The smell of barbecue soon wafted through the village. There were no complicated seasonings. They just grasped it in their hands, bit it, and swallowed it. Some of the meat was even bloodshot and not completely cooked, but the villagers it is as sweet as sugar, and it is eaten with relish. In front of Yang Kai, there was the fattest part of the beast's body. This treatment was not even enjoyed by the most respected village chief, because he was the biggest contributor to repelling the beast tide and killing the wild beast this time. Got the best deal. Yang Kai originally planned to just deal with it casually. After all, his cultivation base has reached his level, so it doesn't matter if he doesn't eat. But when the smell of the barbecue wafted into the tip of his nose, there was a gurgling sound in his stomach. Yang Kai was stunned at the time. I actually feel hungry. How could such a thing happen? He is in the Emperor Prestige realm, and he has already passed the time to eat, and he can replenish his body's needs by breathing in the spiritual energy of the world. But in this weird place, he actually felt hungry. There is also a trace of fatigue. This world is so real. He didn't think about it, and being infected by the villagers, he also reached out to grab the roasted animal meat and ate it. The village women took out the preserved dried fruits, and the village head also ordered someone to fetch the sealed fruit wine. The whole village was filled with a very lively and festive atmosphere. Even so, the defense did not fall, and there were still villagers guard outside the village to prevent the smell of barbecue in the village from attracting wild beasts. A whole day of celebration. Yang Kai didn't know how much he ate and how much fruit wine he drank, but in the end he became faintly drunk, staggered back to the wooden house where he lived, and fell asleep. In the dimness, it felt like someone had entered his cabin. Although exhausted and drunk, Yang Kai's Emperor Senior Realm background was still there, and he opened his eyes in an instant, and shouted, "Who?" When the words fell, I only felt a hot body getting into the quilt made of my own animal skin, reaching out to wrap my waist, and a head buried in my chest. A faint fragrance lingered at the tip of the nose for an instant, and her cheeks were even more itchy from the messy long hair. There was no hostility, but the breathing of the person in his arms seemed rapid and tense, and he trembled slightly. Yang Kai suddenly woke up, his head tilted back, and with the help of the hazy moonlight from the window, he could clearly see the appearance of the person in his arms. "Why are you?" Yang Kai stared at the young girl in astonishment. It was actually the tall girl who toasted to him during the day. With the warmth and fragrance in his arms, Yang Kai could feel the amazing elasticity coming from all parts of the girl's body. "Brother Aniu," the girl murmured, looking up at Yang Kai, shyly showing a hint of boldness, her red lips twitching, extremely alluring. Yang Kai couldn't help being a little dazed, subconsciously said, "What are you doing here?" As soon as the words came out of my mouth, I knew I was stupid, and everyone made it so obvious, what else could I do? Sure enough, the girl said softly, "Brother Aniu, Ani is 15 years old today." There is not much explanation, but Yang Kai also vaguely guessed what it means for a barbarian girl to reach the age of 15. It should mean becoming an adult and becoming a woman. On her 15th birthday, there should be a good gift, and it is the girl's decision to dedicate herself to the most outstanding warrior in the village. After realizing this, Yang Kai suddenly felt bad. If this is the real world, that's fine. The barbarians should be very open to such things. They are not as rigid and conservative as mortal women today. But the key is that this is a secret place. Yang Kai still can't tell whether this is real or has fallen into an illusion. If it's the latter, then what's the point of all this? At most it's just a dream. Just when Yang Kai was thinking about it, the girl arched into his arms again, her fiery body clung to him, as if trying to melt him. She whispered softly, "Brother Aniu, do you like Ani, eh?" Yang Kai bit the bullet and said, I like it, I like it." Everyone has a love of beauty, not to mention such a pure and beautiful girl full of ancient customs. Ani smiled brightly, turned over and sat on him, stretched out her hand to pull, and the crude animal skin clothes on her upper body fell off immediately, and under the moonlight, the girl's beautiful and perfect curves could be seen at a glance. Yang Kai suddenly had the urge to spray nosebleeds. How many years have I not had such a skin-to-skin relationship with a woman? Ever since I left my hometown, Starfield, I seem to have been inseparable. Seeing such an exciting scene at first glance, it is because Yang Kaixin has a good sexual cultivation. I feel overwhelmed. Wait, Yang Kai hurriedly said. What's wrong? Annie looked at him curiously. Yang Kai's thoughts changed sharply, and he swallowed his saliva and said, I'm injured, very serious injury. Annie covered her mouth, seemed to be frightened, and asked worriedly, does it matter? Yang Kai said awkwardly, it's nothing serious. Then it doesn't matter. Ani reached out to untie Yang Kai's clothes. Yang Kai grasped it tightly, deep in his heart, heaven and man were at war, and said, Ani, don't be impulsive. Ani paused, looked at him in disbelief, and said, Brother Aniu, do you hate me? No, Yang Kai quickly denied. Then why? Ani pursed her red lips lightly, as if she was hit head-on by a giant beast and suffered great damage. I just think we should be more cautious about this kind of thing. Yang Kai said solemnly. Ani looked at Yang Kai seriously, and after a while, she turned around and grabbed the clothes that were thrown aside, turned over and jumped off Yang Kai, with tears in her eyes, and rushed out the door. Ani! Yang Kai shouted, but how could there be any response? Yang Kai suddenly felt a little lost. Being fucked like this by the girl, Yang Kai didn't feel sleepy at all. He simply got up, sat cross-legged on the bed. His head was in a mess, and it took him a while to calm down, thinking about what to do in this secret realm. As soon as this weird place came, he completely suppressed and sealed his Emperor Yuan, and all he could rely on was his physical strength. When chasing and killing wild beasts before, Yang Kai also tried to mobilize the power of the soul, but found that the power of the soul was sealed like Emperor Yuan, and he couldn't feel the slightest bit. There are only 5 days before the January period, and I have already stayed in this village for 2 days. In other words, there are only 3 days left before I have to leave the 5-color pagoda. What do you get in the secret realm? But no matter how you look at it, what can a dilapidated and ancient small village give itself? In his heyday, he might have wiped out tens or hundreds of villages like this with just one sneeze. Subconsciously silently mobilizing the cultivation technique, Yang Kai suddenly froze the next moment. He actually felt a trace of power flowing in the meridians, although it was very weak, and could even be said to be illusory, but it was definitely Emperor Yuan. Why did Di Yuan suddenly come out again? Yang Kai frowned, and suddenly remembered that when he came back from killing monsters today, Ani toasted himself, and after drinking the bowl of barbarian wine, he vaguely felt a trace of abnormality in his meridians. At that time, I wanted to check it, but was interrupted by the enthusiasm of the villagers. Is it the credit of the bowl of water and wine? At today's celebration banquet, although they also drank alcohol, it was different from the bowl that Ani served before. The bowl that Ani brought was definitely handed over to her by the village head. This discovery made Yang Kai a little overjoyed. A bowl of turbid wine can produce a little Emperor Yuan in his meridians. If there is more of that kind of wine, can it restore some of his strength? Even back to the peak. He couldn't wait to ask the village chief for more drinks to prove his idea. Although he hasn't encountered any danger since entering this secret realm, Yang Kai has to take precautions. In this ancient era, there were shamans. A powerful shaman is not as bad as a village chief, but a strong man who is not inferior to today's warriors. Turning his head and looking out the window, the moonlight was pouring down. Yang Kai sighed, everything can only be said tomorrow. I don't know when I fell asleep again. When it was dawn the next day, Yang Kai woke up immediately and walked out of his wooden house. Many villagers have already got up early and are busy in the village. After seeing Yang Kai, they all showed respect and nodded slightly, but turned around and laughed incessantly. A few guys even got together and pointed in the direction of Yang Kai. Point. 1 or 2 is fine, the key is that all the villagers I met were like this, so Yang Kai couldn't start asking where the village chief's house was. What are you doing? Yang Kai was confused. I heard that Annie went to your house last night and came out soon. Ahu appeared out of nowhere, leaned over to Yang Kai's side and asked with a wicked smile. Yang Kai turned pale with shock. How do you know? Ahu laughed non-stop, pointed his hand and said, "Everyone knows." Yang Kai suddenly had black lines on his face. No wonder these villagers behaved so strangely, it turned out to be because of this. How did everyone know? Yang Kai looked embarrassed. He didn't care, he just didn't know if it would hurt Annie's reputation. The village is not big after all. Once such news spread, there would definitely be troubles for everyone know. Ahu said. Someone saw it at night. Immediately, he leaned over mysteriously again, and said in a low voice, "Aren't you, not good? You can't do it." Yang Kai was angry. Ahu laughed endlessly. To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2806 One Way to Pass 10,000 Ways to Pass. Chapter 2806. One method leads to 10,000 methods. Village Chief, you are auspicious. In the dilapidated wooden house, Yang Kai saw the only witch in the village. Although he is old, the village chief got up quite early. At this time, he is holding a bowl of batter-like stuff, drinking with relish. Hearing the sound, the village chief glanced at Yang Kai, waited until the food was finished, then put down the stone bowl and said, "It's Niu, what's the matter?" "I want to ask your old man for some mansion wine." Yang Kai went straight to the point. Mansion wine. The village chief was stunned for a moment, stood up and asked with a cane, "What do you need mansion wine for?" "It's delicious, I want to drink another bowl." Yang Kai replied. The corner of the village chief's mouth twitched, but soon he seemed to see something, looked up and down Yang Kai, an astonishing light burst out from his muddy eyes, and tremblingly said, Are you opening the power of the witch?" "Gone." "What?" Yang Kai was stunned, the village chief's thoughts jumped too fast, and he couldn't keep up. "Give me your hand." The village head excitedly stretched out his hand to grab Yang Kai. Although Yang Kai was suspicious, he didn't refuse, and let the boring big hand grab his wrist. The next moment, he felt a weak force invade his meridian, stretching up his arm. The village chief trembled even more, his old face was rosy, as if he had aged several decades, and said in surprise, "It's really the power of a witch, it's really a power of a witch, there are successors in Kangnan village." "You mean this?" Yang Kai's heart moved, urging the little Emperor Yuan in his body, and a little light burst out from his fingertips. The village chief stared fixedly, and nodded repeatedly. "This is the power of the witch, this is the power of the witch." While speaking, he walked out of the wooden house, knelt down on the ground, with a reverent face, clasped his hands together and said, "Thanks to the barbarian god, thank you for the blessing of the gods." Yang Kai frowned slightly, stepped forward to help the old village chief up, lest he accidentally hang up because of being too excited. The village chief took a deep breath, patted Yang Kai's shoulder and said, "Aniyu, now you are also a member of the witch, I am very pleased." Yang Kai Dao, "But I am very confused." The village chief chuckled. "Don't be confused, Mansion will guide you in the direction you want to go. You came to me because you felt this power, right? That's why you came to me for Manshenju." "Yes." Yang Kai nodded, and looked into the house with his head. Although he was the village head, the wooden house was completely bare, and it was clear at a glance that Yang Kai did not see any traces of the existence of the mansion wine. "There is no more mansion wine, yesterday's bowl is the only one left in the village." The old village chief seemed to see Yang Kai's intentions, and explained, "The mansion wine was originally created for our barbarians to unlock the power of witches. The brewing requires a lot of materials, and the brewing is extremely complicated, and the bowl is also left after the ceremony of the previous 2 years. Ritual." Yang Kai frowned. The village chief said, "Have you forgotten? 2 years ago, you, Ahu, and other young people in the village all participated in the ceremony to screen out whether you have the qualifications of a witch. It's a pity that none of you passed at that time." Yang Kai vaguely understood what he was talking about. "I didn't expect you to have the power of a witch now." The village chief looked relieved. Even if he died at this moment, he would have no regrets. "Is there really no wild god wine?" Yang Kai asked unwillingly. He also wanted to verify whether he could use mansion wine to restore part of his strength, but he didn't want to hear the bad news from the village chief and make his plan come to nothing. He also tried it before, and running the exercises he practiced could not increase his strength. The aura of heaven and earth in this era seemed to be different from the era he lived in, and it was somewhat incompatible with what he had learned. The village chief shook his head and said, "No more. And since you already possess the power of a witch, the barbaric wine has no effect on you. Whether it is effective or not, you will know after trying it," Yang Kai said inwardly. The village head suddenly looked at Yang Kai with a smile, and asked in a bewitching tone, "Aniyu, do you want more power? Do you want to become a stronger witch?" Yongkai immediately turned his head into a chicken pecking rice. The village head chuckled, and beckoned like a teachable child, "Come in." The two entered the room one after the other, and saw the village chief rummaging through boxes and cabinets, and quickly found a tortoise-like thing in a corner, and handed it to Yongkai. "Follow the teachings above to practice. In time, you will become a wizard, and even a great wizard. I am old, but you are still young, and the village will be handed over to you in the future." Yongkai took the tortoise shell. His expression was awe-inspiring, and he was quite a bit of an order in the face of danger. The solemnity of being responsible for the safety of the world, it seemed that the whole person had been washed and sublimated, and his figure suddenly became much taller. Then he scratched his head and asked, "Village chief, what is this?" The village head looked at him in astonishment, and explained, "This is the witch's cultivation method." "What?" Yongkai was shocked, looking at the tortoise shell in his hand in disbelief, and said in astonishment, "This is the cultivation method of the ancient barbarian witch." "What is ancient and not ancient?" The village head shook his head. "You practice according to the teachings above, and you will soon become stronger." "But, I don't understand." Yongkai looked at the village chief helplessly. On the tortoise shell, there were some densely packed small characters, but they were completely different from the characters Yongkai knew, and he couldn't make out any of them. The village head opened his mouth wide, and he sighed after a long time, and said, "It seems that we should start by teaching you how to read." For a whole day, Yongkai hid in the village head's house and did not come out until evening. In one day, the village chief explained to Yongkai the method of cultivating the barbarian witch recorded on the tortoise shell, and then taught him a lot of ancient characters which Yongkai was not willing to learn. Anyway, as long as the village head explained the exercises recorded on the tortoise shell, it would be fine. There is no need to learn any ancient characters. But a word from the village head made him dispel the plan in his heart. "When you become stronger, there will be more spells waiting for you to choose. At that time, if you don't know how to read, how will you cultivate?" Yongkai thought about what he said made sense. Anyway, there is no loss in learning more, so he calmed down and studied carefully. Yongkai's comprehension was so high that the village chief was overjoyed. The cultivation method recorded on the tortoise shell, he had spent 3 years to understand it thoroughly, but now, in just one day, Yongkai has already started. Even if he has his own teachings in it, this man named Aniyu children's understanding is so high that it has never been seen before. Originally, Yongkai was in the Emperor Senior realm, and he had come into contact with countless skills and secret techniques, almost reaching the realm where one technique can pass all techniques, and a mere article on the cultivation method of an ancient barbarian which is not too advanced. Naturally, it will be transparent. If it weren't for not being able to recognize those ancient characters, Yongkai didn't need the village chief to teach him at all. Returning to his wooden house, Yongkai's stomach was rumbling, and his hungry chest was pressed against his back. This feeling of hunger made him miss it quite a bit. As a last resort, he could only cut up some animal meat, boil it in a pot, and eat it whole. After eating a full meal, Yongkai began to practice the Wumen method. Yongkai was overjoyed when the cultivation technique started to work. Last night, no matter how he tried it, the aura of heaven and earth that he could not absorb actually began to pour into his body. Driven by the method of the barbarian witch, it turned into his own power little by little. At the same time, Yongkai clearly felt an energy source growing in his abdomen, and the inexplicable energy spread from the abdomen, filling the meridians and dantian. This energy source is somewhat different from the aura of heaven and earth, but under the transformation of the barbaric witchcraft, all methods return to the same goal. It's the essence of that monster's flesh and blood. Yongkai instantly understood the truth of the matter. What he ate before was the flesh and blood of that monster. At this moment, under the transformation driven by the magic arts, all the essence in the flesh and blood of the monster turned into his own powerful capital. Moreover, the power of refining the flesh and blood essence of monsters is more convenient and faster than swallowing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After just a stick of incense, there was another gurgling sound from the abdomen, and the flesh and blood of the monster beast was completely digested. "I feel hungry again." Yongkai frowned. The sudden drop in cultivation efficiency made him rather displeased, so he quickly got up and cooked another pot of animal meat. Soon, after eating and drinking enough, he practiced again. At midnight, Yongkai devoured the entire monster beast, leaving only the skeleton. Such a horrible way of eating. If the other villagers know about it, their eyes will explode. How can it be so easy to eat the flesh and blood of monsters? If there is no powerful force to suppress it, they will definitely be affected by the evil energy hidden in the flesh and blood mind. But Yang Kai's powerful background is there, not to mention a mere monster beast, even a 12th order monster beast can still eat it. After some training, Yang Kai deeply realized the simplicity and rudeness of the ancient barbarian witch's cultivation. Just like monsters, monsters have no way to cultivate. The biggest way for them to become stronger is to devour their own kind and use food to become stronger. The more they eat, the stronger they will become. To a certain extent, the cultivation of ancient barbarian witches coincides with the way of survival of monsters. After countless generations of improvement and evolution, it has created a state where many cultivation methods are flourishing in the world today. The monster's meat had already been eaten. Yang Kai had a flash of inspiration, and took out a chubby inner alchemy from the head of his bed. Since flesh and blood can be eaten, so should inner alchemy, right? An insignificant monster beast eaten, Yang Kai's current body is enough to safely digest it. Otherwise, the village chief would not have told Yang Kai to drink the inner alchemy with wine, but Yang Kai just opened his mouth and swallowed the inner alchemy. When the kung fu started to work, Yang Kai soon felt a group of energy burst out in his lower abdomen, which was more than 100 times more ferocious than before. The inner alchemy of a monster is the essence of its body, and it is the most valuable part of the monster. Even if a witch like the village head swallows it directly, the most likely thing is to explode and die. But for Yang Kai, at most, he just felt a little hot in his abdomen. Thina A. There's no after that. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to vote for recommendations and monthly tickets. Your support is my biggest motivation. Mobile phone users, please go to read. Chapter 2807 High Grade Witch. You. In front of the dilapidated wooden house, the village head stared at Yang Kai dumbfounded, his lips opened and closed, his cloudy eyes were filled with horror, and he was unable to speak. After not seeing each other overnight, he discovered that Aniu had become a real witch. He has worked hard all his life to be nothing more than a witch, but he doesn't think that Aniu has achieved it in just one night. In comparison, he has lived his whole life like a dog. Feeling, the energy and blood in Yang Kai's body was extremely strong, and the power of the witch lingered around his body, which seemed to be more than twice as powerful as his witch. Village chief, time is running out, let's stop talking nonsense, and teach me any unique skills. Yang Kai went straight into the village chief's wooden house. It has been 3 days since he came to this village, and there are only the last 2 days left to be used, so it is natural to hurry up. The village chief was taken aback for a moment, and followed in as he said. The whole morning was spent teaching. In addition to the village head who taught Yang Kai his only few witchcraft, he also explained to him the division of witch power. Yesterday's Yang Kai just activated the power of witches and got the approval of the barbarian gods. Strictly speaking, he is not a real witch, but today he is a real witch, and he is also the entry level of witches. Above the sorcerers, there are sorcerers, and then there are sorcerers, great sorcerers, sorcerer kings, sorcerer saints, and sorcerers of the highest realm. Each realm has 3 grades of upper, middle and lower. For example, the village head is a mid-level witch. But today's Yang Kai is a genuine high-rank witch, 1 rank higher than the village chief, and only 1 step away from being promoted to a sorcerer. After becoming a sorcerer, you can learn more powerful witchcraft, but unfortunately the village chief himself doesn't know it, so naturally he can't teach it. According to the village chief, among the many realms, the most powerful witch god is a legend, and it has not appeared for many years. There are a few witch saints, but they all sit in the most powerful tribes. And Kangnan village belongs to the Nanman tribe, and the most powerful witch in the tribe is nothing more than a witch king, a level lower than the witch saint. After a morning of teaching, Yang Kai not only learned a lot of ancient characters, but also had a deeper understanding of this ancient world. This is second, the most important thing is that Yang Kai has learned the bloodthirsty technique. This can be regarded as Yang Kai's first harvest in this secret realm. There is no value in learning how to cultivate a barbarian witch yesterday. It is just for him to practice in this world. After leaving this secret place, the method of cultivation will become useless. However, the village head also said that the bloodthirsty technique he mastered is only the lowest level of bloodthirsty technique. Not to mention the short duration, the sequelae are also extremely serious. His is much better. Although there will be sequelae, it will not make people weak for several days at once. Just to cast such a bloodthirsty technique also requires a strong force as support. At noon, Yongkai walked out from the village chief's house. It's not that Yongkai doesn't want to make progress, it's just that the village head has nothing to teach right now, except for those ancient characters. The village head has already taught him all he has learned all his life, and Yongkai digested it all in one go, until the village head shocked him into a heavenly man. From now on, let's recognize the characters of Shichen every day. You have to work hard on your own cultivation. I have nothing to teach you. When the village chief sent Yongkai out, his tone was a little lonely and a little relieved. Although no matter what era it was a generation of newcomers replacing old ones, but Yongkai's outstanding performance still made the village chief feel his incompetence and powerlessness. A burst of arduous shouts and screams came into his ears. Yongkai was shocked, thinking that the village had been attacked again. Looking up, I found that I was thinking too much. I saw that in the spacious place of the village, one by one barbarians were posing in extremely weird postures that even refreshed the shame of human beings, regardless of gender. And the muscles all over their bodies were trembling endlessly, and large drops of sweat rolled down their skin, wetting the ground. In various postures, these barbarians seemed to persevere with great difficulty, and they would let out a scream or two from time to time, but they persisted. Yongkai's eyesight is so good, he can see at a glance that this is a method of refining the body, and he walked over in surprise, although he still doesn't know what kind of effect he will get from using this method to refine the body. But look at this, the physical fitness of the barbarians in the village knew that this body refining famine was definitely not bad. Ahu, who had his head down, propped his hands on the ground, and collapsed his body into a bow shape, suddenly yelled when he saw Yongkai approaching. As if being hit hard, Beng Yuan's body bounced up suddenly. Beng Yuan flew more than 10 feet away, and hit a big tree hard, spitting blood. Yongkai was shocked, and quickly walked over to help him up. Are you all right? It's all right. Ahu grinned, reached out and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, as if he had long been used to it. Congratulations, I heard from the village chief that you have activated the power of witches. It's a fluke, Yongkai responded with a smile. Ahu shook his head. This is not a fluke, but a gift from the barbarian god. He patted Yongkai's shoulder heavily, and said earnestly, Aniyu, you are a witch, then you will be the next village chief. Practice hard, the village your future depends on you. Yongkai responded with a wry smile, thinking that I will leave in 2 days, how can there be any future? However, Yongkai didn't say much about the characters who might be in the illusion. Changing the subject, he said, I see you are practicing. Ahu said, yes, do you want to come together? Yongkai nodded and said, okay, but I don't know how to do it. Come, I'll teach you. Ahu was extremely enthusiastic. He dragged Yongkai and joined the cultivation army, smiling very happily. Niu is really different. After receiving the favor of the man god, he really changed a person. I also thought about asking him to practice together before, but every time I was rejected by Niu. He seemed to prefer to hide in his house all the time, and he was unwilling to communicate with the villagers more. But today, Niu actually took the initiative to practice. Ahu was naturally overjoyed. Although Niu is already a witch, a strong body is still fundamental. At that moment, Ahu began to teach Yongkai how to practice. These barbarians are not witches, and they have not activated the power of witches. Their cultivation is naturally aimed at the physical body, in other words, they are training their bodies. Contrasted with the surrounding barbarians who were using all kinds of strange postures for body training, Ahu explained the various postures of this set of body training formulas to Yongkai, and Yongkai naturally remembered them in his heart. The role of the physical body is not only very important in the ancient barbarians, but also cannot be ignored in today's world. Most of today's warriors only focus on the improvement of the cultivation level, but ignore the tempering of the physical body, but they don't know that the physical body is the source of all power. The carrier, only with a strong physical body can it exert stronger strength. Yongkai himself is a beneficiary of a strong physical body, so he naturally has a deep understanding of this. A set of barbaric body art, Yongkai mastered it in half an hour. I was shocked in my heart, although I didn't practice and verify it myself, but this barbarian body art is undoubtedly a very clever body training art. Did the barbarians in ancient times use this method to refine their bodies? No wonder all of them are as strong as dragons and tigers. Regardless of whether this place is an illusion, or whether the people and things he comes into contact with are illusions, this set of barbaric body art alone is enough to make Yongkai's trip worthwhile. Yang Kai's physical strength is indeed strong, the room for improvement that this barbaric body art can bring to him is not too big, but what about the disciples of the entire Lingxiao Palace? What about my relatives and friends who are still in the star field of my hometown? If they have practiced this set of barbaric body formulas, their physical fitness will definitely improve several steps in the future, and it will become easier to improve their cultivation level. After personally experimenting, Yang Kai became more and more sure of his conjecture. This savage body art is really no small matter. With his current body, he feels a little bit of difficulty in training. While his whole body is sore, his flesh and blood seem to become more condensed. The whole afternoon was spent in cultivation, and when night fell, many barbarians returned home exhausted. Ahu enthusiastically invited Yang Kai to sit at his home. Yang Kai thought that he didn't have any food at home, so he might as well go to Ahu's house to eat and drink, and nodded in agreement. For the next 2 days, Yang Kai kept repeating this kind of life. He spent an hour in the morning going to the village chief to learn ancient characters, then he practiced with Ahu and others, and returned to his wooden house to meditate at night. Without the supplement of monster flesh and blood essence and inner alchemy, Yang Kai's cultivation speed slowed down, and he couldn't pass the threshold of witch disciples for 2 whole days. But it doesn't matter, this is already the 5th day, and the January period is coming soon, it's time to say goodbye to this world. He sat in his cabin, seeing no one, waiting to be ostracized by the world. 3 days later, Ahu came to knock on the door. Not long after, the door opened, and Yang Kai looked at him with blood-red eyes. "Aniyu, why haven't you shown up for a few days? The village chief asked me to ask about the situation. Everyone is very worried about you." Behind Ahu, hundreds of villagers stood there neatly, even Ani, who was cried by Yang Kai that night, also stood in the crowd, her beautiful eyes were full of worry. "Did something happen?" Ahu asked nervously. "It's okay, I'm just practicing the witchcraft that the village chief passed on to me, so I'm worrying everyone." Yang Kai squeezed out a smile. Only then did Ahu heave a sigh of relief. "It's fine if it's okay, we thought. By the way, the village chief said he was going to the canyon to bring those dead beasts back, and he needs you to lead the way, and it's going to snow again soon. If you don't go, you won't be able to leave the village. Eh? Okay, you go first, I'll come later." Yang Kai replied and closed the door again. What the hell is going on? Yang Kai was roaring deep in his heart. To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2808 Fury Department. Thanks to the leader of the Old Horse. Thanks to the Lord of the Old Horse, the sky once again gave a reward of 100,000. The 1-month period has come, and he still stays here. Small said back quote, 1. This is impossible. Lan Xuan said before that the opening of the 5-color pagoda can only last for 1 month. Once the deadline is reached, the entrance will be closed. At that time, the entire 5-color pagoda will have an irresistible repulsion, repelling the warriors who enter it. In other words, as long as the deadline is reached, no matter where Yang Kai and others are, they will return to Star God Palace. But in fact, 3 days had already passed the deadline, and Yang Kai didn't feel the rejection of this world at all. For 3 days, Yang Kai tried various methods in the house, but he couldn't leave here. After thinking about it, I felt that either there was something wrong with the 5-color pagoda, or I was trapped by this secret place. The 5-color pagoda is the root of the Star God Palace, and it has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. If something goes wrong, it will have gone wrong long ago, and it is impossible for him to come across it just by chance. So the latter possibility is more likely. Is there anything special about this secret place? Why did you stop yourself? However, after 3 days of thinking, Yang Kai gradually settled down. The 5-color pagoda is the wealth of the Star God Palace. Now that I have fallen into it, the Star God Palace will definitely make some efforts. If the elders can't do anything, then the Emperor will definitely do it himself. So it's useless to worry about your situation now. Why don't you just wait for the outside world help, while looking for a way out here? After tidying up briefly, they chased out of the village in the direction Ahu and the others were heading. The canyon is hundreds of miles away from the village. The last time Yang Kai chased for a full day to reach it. This time, although he didn't have to rush so much, but he couldn't delay. Once the mountain was covered by heavy snow, it would be difficult for these barbarians to move a single step. Under the leadership of Yang Kai, a group of hundreds of people finally arrived in front of the canyon before evening. Yang Kai's stride forward suddenly stopped, and he raised his hand high. The hundreds of villagers following behind stopped in unison, like a well-trained army. There was silence for a moment, but the long journey made them all panting. Ahu leaned over and asked quietly, "What's wrong?" "Someone," Yang Kai replied. Ahu's expression changed. "Are you sure?" "Every barbarian here. They are all experts in jungle survival, and they have a beast-like instinct for tracking and anti-tracking." Ahu didn't notice any abnormalities here, but Yang Kai said such serious things, he didn't dare to take it lightly. No footprints remained on the snow. However, it is also possible that it was covered by today's small snowflakes. Yang Kai tilted his head and gestured to a woman in the crowd. Awa immediately untied the bow and arrow on her back, and walked towards the side wall of the canyon as quickly as the wind, and soon disappeared. A group of people stood there and waited for a long time before Awa walked back against the bitter cold wind, and said solemnly, "There are indeed people. There is a bonfire deep in the canyon. I can't count how many people there are. It's too dark." Ahu said angrily, "People from other tribes must have discovered the beasts that died here. It's abominable. It would be great if they came here a few days earlier." The barbarians did not coexist peacefully, but often fought, especially in the face of food competition. There are 300 ferocious beasts killed by Yang Kai in the canyon. This is a large amount of supplies, enough to feed a village for a whole winter. I hope they are also from the Nanban tribe, and we can still negotiate. You wait here, and I will go and see the situation." Ahu said and started to walk into the canyon. Kangnan village belongs to the Nanman tribe. If everyone is a member of the Nanman tribe, it will be easy to talk about everything. The big deal is that the food is half and half. "Wait a minute," Yang Kai stopped him, "don't bother." Ahu looked at him curiously. However, Yang Kai took a deep breath, raised his hand slightly, and spoke ancient and jerky language. There is even a weak force in the body fluctuating. And the next moment, the air in front of Yang Kai suddenly rippled, like a stone was thrown from a calm lake, and when the circles of ripples spread, a scene of translucent images suddenly appeared in everyone's field of vision. Looking at the image, it seems to be facing the entrance of the canyon. And with Yang Kai's control, the image continued to move inward. Hawkeye. Ahu's eyes lit up. This is the eagle eye spell of the village chief. This magical witchcraft allows the caster to have the vision of an eagle, which is most suitable for scouting. Didn't Aniu become a witch only a few days ago? He even learned such a brilliant witchcraft. No wonder the village chief said that there are successors in the village, and everything in the future depends on Aniu. Hundreds of villagers stood behind Yang Kai. All of them were inexplicably excited, their eyes full of worship. The eagle eye technique continued to advance into the canyon without a sound, and everything it passed was clear at a glance. When Yang Kai pushed the eagle eye technique into the canyon, the light of more than a dozen bonfires in front of him came instantly, and beside each bonfire, there were 7 or 8 burly barbarians. The barbarians were full of smiles and talked and laughed happily. The eyeballs of Ahu and the others immediately turned red. These animal meats were originally the property of Kangnan village, but now they are taken by a group of guys who came out of nowhere. Enmity against food is irreconcilable. Ahua's face changed slightly, and she whispered, "It's from the furnace department." She saw the hideous patterns painted on the faces of these barbarians. It's actually a member of the Raging Flame department. Ahu's face also became a little ugly. Why are these savage guys? Yang Kai glanced at him leisurely, and said that in my eyes, there is no difference between you, and I have the nerve to call others barbaric. At this moment, beside a bonfire, a burly figure suddenly stood up. His sharp eyes were like dancing flames, and he directly met Eagle Eye, and in the vision of everyone in Kangnan village, this barbarian as if staring at himself, people can't help but feel a little creepy. "Ha!" The burly man suddenly snorted coldly, and a crutch-like thing in his hand suddenly pointed forward. The next moment, Eagle Eye was broken directly, and the air in front of Yang Kai burst into flames. "Hey, it was discovered." Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. "That's their witch." Ahu's face was livid. In this wilderness, it's nothing more than encountering people from the Raging Flame department, but there are powerful witches accompanying them, which is bad news for the villagers. Among the entire barbarian tribe, the fierceness and combativeness of the Raging Flame department ranks among the top 3, second only to the Bone Eater and Blood Flow department. "Niu, hurry up and withdraw," Ahu said quickly. Although the villagers in Kangnan village are good at fighting, they still have no confidence in fighting with the people from the Fury department. After all, they have been fighting for a day. However, the members of the Raging Flame department waited for work with leisure, and there was a huge difference in physical strength. Most importantly, Niu is still in the team. He is the hope of the village in the future, and there is no room for any mistakes. So the smartest thing to do now is to leave here as soon as possible. As long as you can keep Niu, what does it matter if you give up the food? It's too late. Yongkai shrugged and looked up to both sides of the canyon. A group of villagers followed his line of sight, their hearts sank. On the cliffs on both sides of the canyon, suddenly more than a dozen figures appeared, all of them holding sharp bows, pulling strings and knocking arrows, aiming at the direction where they are. But the other party didn't shoot immediately, presumably it was to let the villagers of Kangnan village retreat in the face of difficulties. Although the people of the Fury Flame department were aggressive, they were not as cruel as the Bone Eater department. If he met someone from the Bone Eater this time, he might have already been rained down by arrows. That is a tribe where even the barbarians can be used as food. It is a different kind among the barbarians. If they had not had a powerful witch saint in charge, they would have been strangled and exterminated by other barbarians. Awa and the other shooters reacted very quickly. When they realized that they were locked on by someone from afar, they immediately dispersed, bent their bows and drew their strings, and made preparations for a counterattack. It's just that there is a huge gap between the number of people and the position of the counterattack. If this battle really broke out, Kangnan village would definitely suffer heavy casualties. The other party is so enthusiastic, let's just go and meet them for a while. Yongkai grinned, and suddenly raised a finger, and a little white light popped out from the fingertip. Witch, someone whispered from the cliff on one side of the canyon, as if extremely surprised. In ancient times, the number of witches was very rare, and any witch was a valuable asset of the barbarians, so when they saw Yongkai's method of using witches, the shooters of the Rage Flame department frowned. Because of disputes, it is not a big deal to kill some ordinary villagers. The entire barbarian tribe dies countless people every year due to internal strife, but if a witch dies at their hands, the situation will be different. It may arouse the wrath of those witch kings and witch saints. Only those who are also witches can kill witches. I want to see your leader. Yongkai shouted, his voice echoing at the entrance of the canyon. For a witch's request, no one from the Fury Flame department dared to ignore it. Immediately, someone rushed down from the cliff and went deep into the canyon, as if asking for instructions. Soon, the shooters on both sides of the cliff withdrew one after another. Instead, a tall figure walked out from the entrance of the canyon. He was alone, but without any fear, he came straight to Yongkai and the others. The breath rushed over immediately. Ahu snorted coldly, stood beside Yongkai, and stared at the barbarian warrior like two big bastards. Neither of them would show weakness. Yongkai stretched out his hand and patted Ahu's shoulder, signaling him to be calm, and smiled at the barbarian warrior on the other side. Hello friends from the Fury department, I want to see your leader. The barbarian warrior then turned his eyes away from Ahu, looked down at Yongkai who was standing in front of him, and asked in surprise, you are their witch? Replacement is fake. The barbarian warrior frowned. Why are you so weak? To be continued. Chapter 2809 Teeth. Even if he is a witch, he shouldn't be so weak. The young man in front of him looks like he is not an adult, with thin arms and legs, and long crooked melons and jujubes. I am afraid that I can kill him with a single finger. Aniu's strength is beyond your comprehension. Ahu sneered. Many villagers also looked at the barbarian warrior sarcastically. They used to think that Aniu was too weak, even worse than those 13 or 14-year-old children, but the invasion of beast hordes a few days ago made them change their views on Aniu. That is the terrifying combat power and invincible bravery that make them hard to match. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, it would be hard to imagine how such power could be hidden under such a body. The barbarian warriors of the Raging Flame department sneered, non-committal, obviously not feeling that Ahu's words had any deterrent effect, so they just turned around and said, Master Ya is waiting for you inside, follow me. While speaking, he led the way ahead. Yongkai took a step to keep up, and hundreds of villagers followed closely behind. Entering the canyon, Ahu and the others looked around, only to see the archers of the Fury department still on the cliffs on both sides, like shadows, never letting go of the bows and arrows in their hands, obviously warning everyone, but if they act rashly, they will usher strong blow. Not long after, a group of people walked into the deepest part of the canyon. In the light of the fire, hundreds of people from the Raging Flame tribe looked extremely terrifying. The barbarian warrior who led the way came to a bonfire and whispered to a burly barbarian sitting cross-legged on the ground, and the barbarian slightly raised his eyes to look at Yongkai and the villagers behind him. This is the opponent's witch. Yongkai had seen him in Eagle Eye before, so he recognized him immediately. Ya quietly looked at Yongkai, with an unconcealable look of surprise flashing in his eyes. Obviously, like the barbarian before, he felt that Yongkai looked too weak, although Wu Zai didn't pay much attention to the physical body among the barbarians. For the cultivation of strength, they spend most of their time in meditation, and their physical fitness must be inferior to that of other tribesmen. But it's the first time I've seen someone as thin-skinned and tender as Yongkai. What's the name? Ya looked at it seriously for a while and asked. A Niu. Yongkai smiled slightly, his expression neither humble nor overbearing. Then Wan Yu. May I ask what you are doing here? Yongkai replied. Come and get back my spoils. Fang frowned. Your spoils? Yongkai pointed his hand. These you cooked on the bonfire, and the ones placed over there are my spoils of war. Many members of the Raging Flame tribe who were looking at Yongkai with mocking faces immediately frowned, stood up one after another, and glared at Yongkai, intending to beat him to death here. Fang frowned, and then laughed. You said that these dead beasts are all your trophies. What evidence is there? Yongkai shrugged and said, there is probably no special evidence. He paused and said, it's just that our village was attacked by a beast horde a few days ago, and the villagers managed to repel the beast horde. I chased them to this valley and killed them. Kill them all, but it's a pity that I can't take these food away alone, so I can only go back and ask for help. I didn't expect you to come here first. Ya's expression suddenly became very exciting. He looked at Yongkai in amazement and said, you just said, you chased here alone, and then killed all these beasts. Yes. Yongkai nodded and added, well, there was a wild beast at that time. There's another wild beast. Ya's expression became even more exciting. Ha 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 ha. The clansmen of the surrounding Fuyan tribe suddenly burst into laughter, as if they heard the best joke in the world, and Ya couldn't help laughing, shaking his head constantly. If it is said that Yongkai and other villagers defeated the wild beasts in this canyon, it would make sense, but he said that he alone killed more than 300 wild beasts and one wild beast. No one with a little sense would believe such words. The barbarian warrior who led Yongkai and others in before suddenly looked at Ahu sarcastically and said, is your witch a fool? What did you say? Say it again. Ahu suddenly became angry. The witch is the leader of the village, the leader, any witch is the supreme symbol of the village. Insulting a witch is tantamount to insulting the village and tribe where the witch lives. How can Ahu and others bear it? Ahu, Yongkai shouted, shaking his head at him. Ahu gritted his teeth and swallowed his anger. Okay, I probably know your intentions for coming here. Ya smiled slightly, looking calm, obviously met many young people like Yongkai who didn't know the heights of the sky and the earth. How about this, since you are both clansmen and you have traveled far away for the sake of coming here, I will not make things difficult for you. Turning to the barbarian warrior of the Raging Flame department, he said, divide them into 10 and let them go. The barbarian warrior listened, although he was very reluctant, but since it was the witch who spoke, he had no right to refuse, so he could only follow orders. 10. Lord Ya is very generous. Yongkai smiled slightly, not acknowledging it. Young man, don't challenge my patience. Ya's expression suddenly became serious. You should be familiar with the name of my Raging Flame department. If I were young, you should be lying on the ground now. So, just take it when you see it. Yongkai nodded and said, Master Ya's teachings, you will always keep in mind. But, I insist that Lord Ya should return all my spoils. These things do not belong to you. When the words fell, he looked at his teeth with burning eyes. Ya grew up, and the tall figure cast a shadow, covering Yongkai, looking down and saying, you are looking for trouble. The two witches suddenly saw a flash of swords, and the villagers naturally responded. There was a clanging sound, and their respective archers drew their bowstrings one after another, aiming their sharp arrows at the strongest warrior on the other side. Ahu and the others also took off the stone axes and spears from their waists, and hot air spewed from their nostrils. High spirits. A big battle is about to break out. You will die, Ya-sen said. You guys won't have a good time either. Yongkai smiled slightly, as if he didn't care at all who died and who lived in the end. Are you determined to go to war? I said these are my trophies. If you don't believe me, you are only willing to give me 10 of them, but you know the truth in your heart. When you came here, these beasts had been dead for several days, so they are not belongs to you. Ya said angrily. Anything that has no owner, whoever picks it up will own it. The master has come. Evidence. Yang Kai Dao. I can't get it out, and I can't prove it. Ya sneered, and before he could speak, Yang Kai said again, then there is only one way in front of us, under the witness of the barbarian, use the way of witches to resolve this dispute. Ya's eyes shrank, and he looked at Yang Kai in disbelief. Are you challenging me? Yang Kai said with a smile, this is the only solution. Don't you want to see our clansmen fight for both sides? The severe winter is coming. If the clansmen are injured, this winter may be difficult. Ya seriously thought for a while, then nodded and said, it is indeed as you said, but... Grinning grinningly, do you think you have a chance of winning? I haven't played before, who knows? Yang Kai laughed. Okay, since you insist on this, then I, Wu Ya, in the name of a barbarian god, agree to your challenge. After the words fell, he waved and shouted, everyone back away. After hearing this, many barbarians from the Raging Flame department put away their weapons and retreated. Yang Kai turned his head and said, you also retreat. Ahu and the others looked at Yang Kai worriedly. Although they confronted each other just now, they heard Yang Kai's words clearly. Although they had never seen Wu's duel, they were not unfamiliar with it. It was a sacred battle under the witness of the barbarian gods, and one's own life and reputation were betted. The victor could take all the fruits of victory, while the loser would usually end up miserable. Aniu. Ahu's lips opened and closed, and he wanted to persuade Yang Kai a few words, but he also knew that it was useless to persuade him now. Since Wu Ya agreed to Yang Kai's challenge, then this battle was unavoidable. Once retreating, it is a blasphemy against the barbarian god, and no one can tolerate such an act. Thousands of words turned into one sentence, be careful. Yang Kai nodded, giving him a no-worry look. Ahu and the others were full of sadness, how could they not be worried? Just a few days ago, Yang Kai was still a good-for-nothing, Niu. Although he performed extremely amazingly when the beast horde invaded, and later became a noble witch, after all, the time was short. He is so old, but he is at the time when he is physically strong, and his aura is much stronger than that of the village chief. Can a Niu have a chance of winning? Different from the worries of the villagers of Kangnan village, the clansmen of the Raging Flame department all looked relaxed, and put on a look of watching the show, gathering in groups of 3 or 4 to point at Yang Kai, with mocking smiles on their faces, seems to be laughing at Yang Kai's overreaching. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that this Wu Niu can't be the opponent of Lord Ya, and his end will definitely be miserable. Soon, the venue was cleared, and in the depths of the huge canyon, only Yang Kai and Ya were standing face to face, 10 feet away from each other. This distance is also a common distance for duels between witches. The biting cold wind was blocked by the sides of the canyon, but it made a horn-like sound, and there were bursts of crackling from the campfires around. Ya smiled, and said, Wu Niu, I am a mid-level sorcerer. You don't have a strong aura, so you should be just a sorcerer, right? Yang Kai replied, Lord Ya has a good vision. The village chief said that I am now a high-rank witch. Ya nodded. Your courage is commendable, and you are still very young. If you practice hard, you may not have a better future. It's a pity that you are too arrogant. Yang Kai Dao. Lord Ya, if you want to preach, there will be time later. If you don't make a move, I will do it. Ya sneered, obviously unwilling to bully the weak with the bully, clearly telling Yang Kai to do it first. That being the case, Yang Kai didn't have any hesitation anymore. With a wrong foot, he rushed towards his teeth like a whirlwind. A sarcasm and mocking expression on the teeth immediately froze on his face. What are you doing? How did you rush over here? To be continued. This text is provided by the Dawn Update at CAA Cent. Chapter 2810. Chapter 2810 in Yurongyang. The battles of the barbarians have always been known for being simple and rough. It is their instinct to move forward bravely, but that is only limited to ordinary barbarians. The battle between witches is not a rampage, but a competition of their own cultivation and the witchcraft they have learned. When agreeing to this Wu's challenge, Ya had already conceived several plans in his mind to defeat him in an instant. He was just a top-ranked witch, and he couldn't make any waves under his own hands. Whether it was his own realm or combat experience, this witch the cow is completely incomparable with himself. So when Ya saw Yang Kai rushing in a straight line, he couldn't help but feel a little dazed. Isn't he a witch? Why not perform witchcraft, but be as barbaric as ordinary tribesmen? The sudden astonishment made him hesitate for a moment, but after all, it was an experienced middle-rank sorcerer, Feng soon came back to his senses, the ancient and jerky language sounded in his mouth, and the wooden staff in his hand waved forward lightly. The air in front of him suddenly rippled, turning into a strong and transparent shield to block the front. Then he didn't stop, pointing his crutches forward. A burst of fire burst out, and a fireball the size of a washbasin roared and rushed towards Yongkai. 1. The two simplest witchcrafts, one defense and one attack, perfectly reflect Chu Ya's super ability as a witch. That fireball is impossible for a low-rank sorcerer to resist, and this high-rank sorcerer can only drink hatred. He stood there calmly, with playful expressions in his eyes, quietly admiring the scene where the witch cow was defeated by him. When the fireball exploded, all the villagers in Kangnan village exclaimed in unison. Everyone's face was full of worry and fear. Ahu opened his mouth to call out to remind, but Yongkai turned a deaf ear to it, and went straight to meet the fireball. With a bang, when the flames were shining brightly, the canyon was illuminated so brightly that everyone couldn't open their eyes, and the hearts of hundreds of villagers in Kangnan village sank to the bottom of the valley. It's over, Niu is over now. Being hit head-on by such a big ball of fire, how can he die? The future hope of Kangnan village has fallen like this. Ahu clenched his fists and blamed himself. He should have stopped the duel between Niu and that Wu Ya long ago, even at the risk of blaspheming the barbarian god. At least it's better than him losing his life. A moment later, when Ahu and the others regained their vision and looked towards Ya with angry eyes, their eyes suddenly widened, each of them seemed to see a ghost, and several villagers even rubbed their cheeks vigorously. Eyes, want to see more clearly. However, the faces of the members of the Nguyen tribe who were gloating at other people's misfortune suddenly changed, and they were stunned on the spot. Ya Niu was standing stiffly on the spot, and Wu Niu, who was supposed to fall under the huge fireball, rushed to him at some point and looked at him with a smile. There was no serious injury on Niu's body. Only the hair seemed a little burnt. Lord Ya, I think I won, what do you think? Yongkai looked up at Ya with a smile. Ya's face twitched a few times. He couldn't understand why such a scene happened anyway. His fireball should have hit the opponent, how did he avoid it? But if you let him admit defeat. The battle has just begun. Ya roared, the ancient and jerky language sounded again in his mouth. He raised his crutches and pointed towards Yongkai. But this time he didn't have the chance to release the witchcraft, and when the crutch was just raised, Yongkai punched out with an uppercut. The witchcraft shield in front of Feng twisted suddenly, like a flattened balloon. The terrifying power soon exceeded the limit of the witchcraft shield, and it shattered. His teeth were about to crack in an instant, and his whole body was icy cold. Being pulled closer by Yongkai, the reason why he didn't dodge, but insisted on releasing the witchcraft was because he had absolute confidence in his own witchcraft shield, and believed that this witchcraft cow would not be able to break his own witchcraft shield, so just stood there obediently. But who knew that the shield of witchcraft that he was proud of could not even catch the opponent's punch? There was nothing wrong with releasing the witchcraft just now, how could it be so fragile? Boom-a! The fist hit the face. Ya's face was distorted for a moment, and when the teeth flew down, the body that was nearly half taller than Yongkai flew up like a kite, and fell heavily on the ground, making a sound. Before he could stand up, Yongkai had already jumped in front of him like a cheetah, grabbed his neck with one hand, raised his other hand high, clenched into a fist, grinned and said, Master Ya, you are admitting defeat yourself, or did I beat you until you admit defeat? The body that was supposed to be weak suddenly became as majestic as a towering mountain in Ya's vision. You're shameless, Ya shouted angrily, his eyes full of unwilling expressions. If it wasn't for this Wu Niu's cunning tricks, which caught him by surprise, he might not have lost this battle. He is a middle-rank sorcerer, and he is only a top-rank sorcerer, 2 small steps away from each other. Yongkai sneered and said, when you encounter a wild beast in the future, you will also count on the wild beast to compete with you in witchcraft, won't you, bully you? Fang's expression was startled, and he suddenly misfired. Let go of the tooth Sama. Let go. The barbarians from the Raging Flame department gathered around, and surrounded Yongkai in 3 layers, all of them had red eyes, full of hostility. Although hurting a noble shaman is a serious crime for any barbarian, seeing their shaman being pinned to the ground, the people of the Raging Flame department naturally couldn't remain indifferent. Yongkai turned his head, his gaze coldly swept over the barbarians of the Rage Flame department, and the corner of his mouth curled up, revealing a disdainful smile. Stand back, Ya said, waving his hands. Numerous members of the Rage Flame tribe heard the words. Although they were reluctant, they still retreated according to their words, but they still did not give up their vigilance against Yongkai. Once Yongkai really killed the toothache, then these barbarians would definitely be attracted. Revenge. Yeah, after experiencing the previous unwillingness and the humiliation of being defeated by the weak, his expression became calmer at the moment, and he sighed, "You are right, I was careless." He did not admit that his strength was not as good as Yongkai, but felt that he was too careless, so he capsized in the gutter. Yongkai knew what he was thinking, and didn't bother to talk to him. He tilted his head and said, "Then this battle." Ya said dejectedly, "You won, and all the trophies are yours. There is no need to continue the competition, being pressed to the ground like a grasshopper by others, and the teeth have no face to struggle." Acceptance. Yongkai grinned, then loosened the neck that was holding his teeth, and after getting up, he pulled him up too. Tooth turned his head to spit out a mouthful of blood, only felt the burning pain in his cheeks. Just now Yongkai punched him, 2 of his teeth flew out, his face was almost numb, now the numbness passed, but he felt the pain. He didn't say much, the loser didn't have the qualifications to say much. He glanced at Yongkai with complicated eyes, waved and said, "Let's go." The clansmen of the Raging Flame Department did not say a word, they lined up behind their witch, preparing to rush back to the village by night. "Master Tooth, wait a minute." Yongkai stopped him. "What else is there?" Ya turned his head and looked at Yongkai puzzled. "Master Ya, don't you want these beasts anymore?" Yongkai asked, pointing to the mountains of frozen beast corpses. Ya's expression changed, and he said angrily, "Wu Niu, are you humiliating me?" Losing the duel, he is no longer qualified to touch these beasts. Yongkai asked this question at this moment, in his opinion, it was deliberately provocative. Yongkai shook his head and said, "I don't mean that, it's just Mr. Ya, you mobilize the crowd, so many people come from afar, it should be to find the winter grain storage." Ya took a breath and said, "Aren't you too?" Yongkai smiled and said, "Since that's the case, I'm willing to give a part to Mr. Ya." What? Teeth froze. Even the barbarians from the Rage Flame Department were extremely surprised, looking at Yongkai in astonishment. "I didn't count the numbers when I came last time, but there should be 300 or 400 beasts in this valley. You see, Mr. Ya, my villagers only have hundreds of people. Even if each person drags 2 beasts back, there are still many people left. Most of them are left here, and the heavy snow is coming. We don't plan to come back after returning to the village this time. In other words, the remaining beasts are afraid to be frozen here. If Lord Ya doesn't mind, you can the rest of the beasts are brought back to the village, although the number is small, but if we save a little, it should be enough to survive the winter." Are you really willing to do this?" Fang couldn't believe his ears. This witch cow is willing to share part of the spoils with himself. What he just said is correct. There are indeed 300 or 400 dead beasts in this valley, and they are not manned enough to bring all the beasts back to the village. Hundreds of them. Each of these beasts is huge in size, enough to feed a clansman for a whole month. If they save a little, they can indeed survive the winter. But how is this possible? Some people are willing to hand over the food that reaches their mouths. This is like in today's world, sending one's wife out for people to play with, it seems a bit unreasonable to Teeth. But no matter what, if this Wu Niu is sincere, then the whole village should be grateful. Of course, in the name of the gods, I, Wu Niu, will give you the rest of the beasts. Yongkai looked solemn. Now there is no doubt in the Teeth, if a witch speaks in the name of a barbarian god, there will be no false elements. He looked at Yongkai quietly, for a while, suddenly bent down, put his hands on his chest, and said in a deep voice, "Wu Niu, please forgive my rudeness and arrogance before. Thank you for your generosity and magnanimity. The villagers of Kamhuo village in the Raging Flame Department will remember your kindness, and you will be our forever friend." The villagers of the other Kamhuo villages in the Raging Flame Department also bent over and supported their chests. That is the noblest courtesy of barbarians. Ahu and the others stood behind Yongkai, their faces all showing a glimmer of pride. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to vote for recommendations and monthly tickets. Your support is my biggest motivation. Mobile phone users, please go to read. Chapter 2811 Long-Term Plan. The bonfire was jumping, and the smell of roast meat permeated the entire canyon. The villagers of Lianwo village and the villagers of Kangnan village blended together harmoniously, chatting and laughing happily. A no pop-up window. The 2 witches as leaders put aside their previous grievances, shook hands and made peace, and even made their respective villagers let go of their vigilance and hatred, and lived together happily. The barbarians of Lianwo village contributed the fruit wine they brought, and the villagers of the two tribes ate and drank heavily, as if they were wearing a pair of trousers. Beside the beautiful women in their respective villages, many men from the other village gathered around them, and they were pursuing each other, with the intention of leaving a dream in this canyon. And Ahu was fighting with another villager from Lianwo village in the open field. In the daily life of the barbarians, there are very few entertainments. The most common is this kind of hand-to-hand fighting, and the friendship of the barbarians is all based on fists. He was much stronger, and Ahu Shengzai was young and vigorous. For a while, the two of them fought extremely anxiously, evenly matched, which made the other tribes watching applauded. Yang Kai glanced at the battlefield, and saw that Ahu had eaten the opponent's punch, bent like a shrimp, but took advantage of the moment when the opponent charged carelessly. He suddenly attacked and kicked the opponent's head on the knee. The villagers of Lianwo village were caught off guard and fell to their knees. Turning his head, Yang Kai said, "Lord Ya, is that the shield of witchcraft you mentioned just now?" When the words fell, he stretched out his hand a little forward, and the fluctuation of spiritual power came out, and the air in front of him rippled for a while, turning into a transparent shield to block the front. Ya opened his mouth wide, and after a while he said, "Yes, that's it." "So that's it." Yang Kai nodded, and said again, "However, this witchcraft shield seems to be only able to defend against low-level witchcraft. If a witch of the same level uses witchcraft, I am afraid it will be powerless to resist. Yado. At least there will be a buffer time, enough for people to avoid it. At critical moments, this is a life-saving witchcraft." Yang Kai Dao. "Master Ya is also reasonable, but I think it is better to use the shield of witchcraft like this." Talking, Yang Kai demonstrated. Teeth are going crazy. After discussing with this witch cow, he found that the other party's understanding of witchcraft is very shallow, and many commonly used witchcraft can't be released. It seems that he has only learned witchcraft for a few days. Creativity astounded him. I explained and demonstrated several commonly used witchcraft by myself, and the other party unexpectedly came up with it easily and released it all at once. If it wasn't for his extremely sincere expression and no intentions towards himself, Ya would even wonder if he was pretending. Moreover, he was able to improve these commonly used witchcrafts. The witchcrafts improved by him, both in terms of casting speed and power, had to be significantly improved to a higher level. Is he still a high-rank witch? Only those great wizards can do this kind of thing, right? Yashin, as a mid-level sorcerer, has always been able to pick up the wisdom of others and follow in the footsteps of his predecessors. He has no ability to improve the sorcery he has learned, but he has seen one after another in this sorcerer. Miracle. For a whole night, the two witches got together and communicated constantly, and both of them gained something. Yang Kai learned several simple and practical witchcrafts, and Ya also had a deeper understanding of those kinds of witchcrafts after being inspired and demonstrated by Yang Kai. Although his realm has not improved, Ya feels that his strength has greatly increased. As long as he is given a period of time to digest what he has gained tonight, even if he encounters a high-rank wizard in the future, he will still have the power to fight. At dawn, people from the two villages were ready to go and parted ways at the entrance of the canyon. Ya looked at Yang Kai with some reluctance and said, "Master Niu, please come to my Lianwo village as a guest. We will definitely entertain you and your clansmen with the best food." Yang Kai chuckled. "If you have a chance, please come to Kangnan village to have fun, Mr. Ya." Ya's eyes lit up, and he said, "Okay, when the snow melts and spring comes, I will definitely go." There will be a period later. Yang Kai cupped his fists. The tooth stared blankly, although he didn't know what etiquette was, but he learned it well. Yang Kai turned around, grabbed the hind legs of the two beasts, dragged them on the snow, and led hundreds of villagers away. Ya watched Yang Kai leave, and murmured, "I saw the rise of a new star." "What?" a tribe next to him asked Fox. "It's nothing, go home." Ya waved his hand, and the villagers of Lianwo village each dragged a wild beast and returned with a full load. It is not easy for each person to drag two huge beasts to run in the snow. It has been 2 days since a group of people from Kangnan village returned to the village from the canyon. Hundreds of villagers were warmly welcomed by others as heroes. After returning to the village, they immediately began to clean up the storage. The village chief also walked over tremblingly and asked if there was any accident on this trip. Ahu fully told the village head what happened to the people in Lianwo village. After hearing this, the village chief nodded at Yang Kai and said, "Aniu, you did a good job. Although they are from different tribes, they are all clansmen after all, so don't be stingy when you can help. I think so too. Yang Kai nodded. Okay, you're tired too, go back and rest. I'll talk to you tomorrow. On the second day, Yang Kai went to the village head early. Aniu, I want you to be the village head of Kangnan village, do you want to? After the meeting, the village head cut straight to the point and went straight to the point. Yang Kai was stunned for a moment, and then immediately refused. This can't be done. You don't rush to refuse. The village chief smiled slightly, as if he had expected it, and sighed, listen to me. Yang Kai nodded. Then the village head continued. I am old, and I don't have many years to live. After I die, you will also take over as the village head. I was worried that without the protection of the witch, the village would definitely be destroyed by other villages. Annexation, you also know what the life of the villagers will be like after being annexed. Fortunately, the gods favored you, allowing you to activate the power of witches, and you are now a top-rank witch, a bit higher than me, completely worthy ability to take over as village chief. You are young, and I was not at ease when the position of village chief was entrusted to you. But seeing how you deal with the matter of Lianwo village, I know that you will not let me down, and you will not let the villagers down. I dignity realize that you are kind and mellow in the world, so it's better for you to be the village head than me, and the villagers will believe in you. After experiencing the beast horde invasion and the confrontation with Ya, the people in the village respected Yang Kai very much. If he were the village head, no one would say anything. Yang Kai shook his head and said, Village chief, I cannot agree to this matter. Why? The village chief showed a disappointed expression. He didn't expect that Yang Kai would still refuse after he said so much. Yang Kai sighed. He couldn't say that he just came to practice in the secret realm. You, the village chief, and those villagers are all just derivatives of the illusion, and he will leave here one day. I want to go out and have a look while I'm young. I probably don't have much time to stay in the village in the future. You want to leave the village? The village chief looked at Yang Kai in surprise, but soon he was relieved. Also, your aptitude is extraordinary, and living in one place is not good for you. Walk around and see, it will be good for you. Growth also helps. Village chief, I'm sorry. The village head smiled slightly. Don't be sorry, you are a villager in my Kangnan village, you will be there wherever you go. Okay, let's not talk about this, let's learn how to read. As always, the village chief taught Yang Kai to recognize those strange ancient characters, as if nothing happened just now. 2 days after Yang Kai brought the villagers back to the village from the canyon, heavy snow fell, and the whole world seemed to have turned into frozen soil. In such an environment, even ferocious beasts are unwilling to move around easily, let alone people, and the villagers are all nested in their houses, unable to come out easily. Yang Kai's daily life is very regular. In the morning, he will learn ancient characters for an hour with the village chief, then return to his wooden house to practice his body, and then continue to accumulate witchcraft power. 10 days later, Yang Kai suddenly felt that some barrier in his body was broken, and the power was rushing through the meridians, and the strength of the whole person seemed to have skyrocketed a lot in an instant. Sorcerer. It only took one night to turn from the power of the witch to a high-rank witch, but it took Yang Kai half a month to go from a high-rank witch to a sorcerer. For more than 10 days, Yang Kai has been waiting for this secret realm to squeeze him out, but he has not been able to do so. He has some doubts whether he has really fallen into this secret realm and cannot escape. But no matter what, Yang Kai must make a long-term plan. This world is very strange, suppressing the power of his Emperor Senior realm, even the divine sense cannot be released. If not for this, he would not be unable to activate the space ring. And according to the village chief, only when he raised his own strength to the level of a wizard, would he have such a thing as divine sense. So his current goal is to quickly cultivate to the level of a wizard, then open the space ring, and take out the inner alchemy of the million monsters. As long as he has the inner alchemy of the million monsters, his promotion speed will increase linearly. The Witch King and the Witch Saint are at your fingertips. Perhaps, when the witch's power reaches a certain level, he will be able to find a way to leave this world. But from a sorcerer to a sorcerer, it is a big improvement. Yang Kai estimates that according to his current cultivation speed, it will take at least a year and a half. How can he afford to wait? Trapped in this inexplicable secret realm, his own strength is the foundation of survival, and he can't wait to become stronger. The best way to increase strength is to find monsters, and obtain the blood and inner alchemy of monsters by killing monsters, especially the inner alchemy, which he can swallow directly to increase his strength quickly. As long as there are enough monsters, beast inner alchemy, wizards and so on can break through casually. I 1/4 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 I 1/4. Chapter 2812 Luobation. Chapter 2812 Luobation. This can't be done, this can't be done. In the wooden house, the village chief shook his head as if he had been stimulated by something, and looked at Yang Kai sadly and said, "Aniyu, do you know what you are talking about?" Yang Kai sighed. "I just went out to practice for a while, and Kai-chun came back." The village head said, "Now that the severe winter has come and the mountains are covered with heavy snow, you are considered a top-rank witch. Hey, you, when did you become a sorcerer?" Just now when Yang Kai came over, the village chief hadn't observed his state carefully, but at this moment he was shocked. The Aniyu in front of him had become a sorcerer. This is not to say that the village head has the ability to identify a sorcerer, but his vision is brilliant, and the aura on Yang Kai's body is definitely not something a sorcerer can have. How is this possible? It was more than half a month ago that Aniyu received the favor of the barbarian god, opened up the power of witches, and broke through to a top-ranked witch overnight, which is shocking enough, but he did not expect to be a sorcerer now. That is the realm that I have hoped for all my life but have not been able to reach. Yang Kai smiled slightly. "Village chief, do you think I, a sorcerer, don't have the strength to protect myself outside?" The village head said, "Even if you are a sorcerer, how many kinds of witchcraft do you know? I taught you all the sorcery." Before he finished speaking, the village head opened his mouth wide, staring blankly at a shield of witchcraft and a fireball technique in his palm that appeared in front of Yang Kai. The village head opened and closed his lips, but found that he could no longer find a reason to stop Aniyu from taking risks. Yang Kai Dao, "Village chief, I just came here to let you know, even if you disagree, I will find a chance to slip away." The village chief sighed heavily and said after a long time, 3 days, give me 3 days, and I will teach you something. It is good. For the next 3 days, Yang Kai stayed in the village chief's house and lived with him. For 3 days, the village head did not teach Yang Kai any particularly powerful witchcraft, nor did he teach him any cultivation techniques. The village head is powerless in terms of cultivation. According to his words, he has nothing better teach Yang Kai. It's just that he knows that Aniyu has been isolated from the world before, and has no communication with other people in the village, let alone understanding of the outside world. Going out this time is not enough to protect oneself with strength, so what the village chief taught Yang Kai is the knowledge of this world, various customs, and emergency response plans when encountering various dangers. When the village chief was young, he also wandered outside. After 3 days passed, the village chief had nothing to teach Yang Kai, even the ancient characters had been taught. "I'll tell the villagers that you are practicing in closed-door training, so they don't want to disturb you. Leave quietly tomorrow before dawn, and remember to come back early." The village chief seemed to be telling a child about to travel far away, with a dark expression on his face. Full of worries and worries. "I see. Go and rest. Starting tomorrow, what you have to face is a new journey." The next day was still bright, and Yang Kai started his journey. At this time, the villagers were still sleeping soundly, but when Yang Kai left the village, he looked back with a feeling, and saw on the fence, the person in charge Awa, who was on duty at night, stood quietly, looked at each other, nodded slightly to each other, and said nothing. Yang Kai strode forward and quickly disappeared from Ahua's sight. 5 days later, at the foot of a mountain thousands of miles away from Kangnan village, Yang Kai took out a piece of yellowed animal skin paper, compared his route, and looked at the mountains in front of him. It should be right here. Luobation. This is the goal of Yang Kai's trip. When the village chief was training outside, he didn't go too far. This Lubai mountain was a point on his way, and the yellowed map in his hand was given to him by the village chief before he left. According to the village chief, there are many savage beasts living in Lubai Mountain, and some of them are as powerful as the Great Wizard. The village chief has repeatedly warned Yang Kai that he must do what he can, but the purpose of Yang Kai's trip is to trouble the wild beasts, so he will not take the village chief's warning to heart. After a while, Yang Kai stepped into Luobai Mountain. Another half day later, In a cave, Yang Kai exhaled heat, stepped on the corpse of a monster beast, and said dissatisfiedly, "It's really weak." In his opinion, this monster is only equivalent to the 3rd or 4th level. Even if he doesn't use the power of a witch, he can kill it casually with his body alone. But something is better than nothing. Taking out the monster beast inner pill and cleaning it casually, Yang Kai swallowed it directly into his stomach, sat down cross-legged, and started to refine it. The abdomen was rolling like thunder, and there was a strange sound. In less than a stick of incense, Yang Kai had already refined the inner alchemy. Feeling silently, Yang Kai frowned slightly. The result is not ideal. After refining a monster inner alchemy, the improvement of its own strength is not very obvious. This monster seems to be weaker than the one he killed in the canyon last time. Naturally, there is not much energy. At this speed, even if he refined 1,000 inner alchemy, he might not be able to become a wizard. His goal is not far away, as long as he can be promoted to a wizard and have his own divine sense. Although he is dissatisfied, he has nothing to do now, he can only persevere, and slowly accumulate by numbers while expecting to encounter more powerful monsters. In the following days, Yang Kai has been wandering in Lubai Mountain, going deep all the way, looking for monster beasts to kill. Time flies for a month, during which Yang Kai killed many monster beasts and got many monster beast inner alchemy, but so many monster inner alchemy entered his stomach, and it was only for his cultivation to be promoted to that of a low-rank sorcerer. It's just the limit, not even the mid-tier sorcerers can break through. Weak, too weak, Luo Baishan's monster level is too low, it can't meet his needs at all. He originally planned to be promoted to a wizard within a month, then open the space ring, and then retreat for 2 months, and finally return to the village as a witch king or even a witch saint, but now it seems that he is thinking too much. He could only keep going deeper, with inexplicable expectations in his heart. On this day, Yang Kai was refining a newly obtained inner alchemy when suddenly his ears moved and his brows frowned slightly. He actually heard footsteps approaching the cave where he was hiding. And the footsteps didn't sound like a person. There are other people in this ghost place. Now that the winter is harsh and bitter, who else can wander outside except myself? Are you afraid of freezing to death and starving to death? When they were wondering, those people had already entered the cave, and someone immediately said, "Be careful, it smells like blood." The sound of footsteps suddenly became quiet, and he couldn't even hear his breathing quietly, but Yang Kai could feel that the other party was slowly approaching his side. Sure enough, not long after, a barbarian suddenly appeared and stopped 5 feet away from Yang Kai. When he first saw Yang Kai, the barbarian was obviously taken aback, and his expression became extremely stunned. Apparently, he didn't expect to meet the clansmen here. Immediately behind this barbarian, several other people also appeared one after another, but all of them looked extremely embarrassed, as if they had just experienced a big battle. The worst one lost his arm, bleeding profusely, and his face turned pale with pain. Yang Kai only took one look and knew that his arm was bitten off. But the barbarian is a barbarian after all. Even though he suffered such a serious injury, he still kept silent, with his other hand still holding a cracked stone spear. "Who are you?" The leader of the barbarian looked at Yang Kai, and asked. The guy in front of him was thin and tender, without the slightest barbarian appearance. Where did he come from? Yang Kai turned his eyes to look at him, but ignored him. This arrogant attitude immediately annoyed the other party. Just as he was about to explode, a tall woman suddenly appeared behind him. The woman looked cold and said, "Don't disturb him, he is in cultivation." This woman seemed to be very authoritative, so after she spoke, the barbarian who spoke before was still angry, but did not say anything more, but looked at Yang Kai suspiciously, frowned and said, "Cultivation? Is he a witch?" The woman also looked at Yang Kai in amazement. He is indeed a witch, and a sorcerer. Sorcerer. Several barbarian warriors were taken aback and couldn't believe their ears. But these words came from their own witches. Even if they didn't want to believe it, they had to believe it. Such a thing is also a sorcerer. The woman took a step forward, looked at Yang Kai and said, "My companion was injured in the battle just now. We need a place for him to heal quietly. There is no suitable place nearby, so we can only choose here, but don't worry, we won't bother you." Yang Kai nodded slightly. It was also funny in her heart. The other party probably thought that she was at a critical juncture of cultivation, so she couldn't speak or disturb. How could she know that Yang Kai was just too lazy to talk to them, and only wanted to quickly refine the inner alchemy in his abdomen? "Thank you." The woman thanked her, and then led the others back a little distance, and arranged for the injured clansman to sit down and heal him. A very clear wave of spiritual power came, although Yongkai didn't know what kind of means the woman had, but just now Yongkai felt that the other party should also be a sorcerer, and most likely a top-rank sorcerer. In other words, she is higher than her realm. However, she is a good person, and she is not hostile to herself. After all, in her opinion, she is currently in a state of uninterrupted cultivation. If she really has any malicious intentions, it is the best choice to strike at this moment. In the outer half of the cave, several barbarians gathered together, watching their own witches heal their companions. The witchcraft performed by the woman and its icy coldness, with the characteristics of freezing everything, quickly healed the wounds. After freezing, he took out some herbal medicine from the animal skin bag he carried with him and let the people of the tribe take it. Soon, the injured barbarian's expression eased a lot, and it should not be as painful as before. The woman also breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, a strange voice suddenly came from the side. He is poisoned. If you don't detoxify him, he won't live long. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come, vote for recommendations, monthly tickets, your support is my biggest motivation. Mobile phone users please go to read. Chapter 2812 One Barbarian Family. Phone reading. As soon as the words came out, several barbarian warriors turned around abruptly, holding stone spears and axes, staring at Yongkai vigilantly, their spines shivering. Please search #IC1/2 to see the most complete. The fastest updated novel. Although they were concerned about the safety of their companions just now, their instincts as fighters still existed, but none of them noticed that someone was approaching behind them, which was simply unbelievable. If the people who approached had any malicious intentions, I'm afraid they all have to confess here. After all, he was a sorcerer. The woman who asked to be a witch also shook her body, but her reaction was not as intense as that of the barbarian warriors. She turned around and lowered her hands, signaling to her companions not to be so nervous. Immediately she said, I know he was poisoned, and I also used the poison removal technique. The effect is not ideal. Yongkai tilted his head and looked at it, thought for a while and said, do you want me to help? You. The woman frowned, with a look of distrust in her eyes. First, the sorcerer in front of him is a stranger after all. Who knows whether he is good or evil? It is normal for witches and barbarians from different tribes to have impulses outside, and secondly, Yongkai is just a low-rank sorcerer after all, and what is Yongkai capable of solving the things that she is helpless as a high-rank sorcerer? Yongkai shrugged and said, I just said it casually. Which one are you from? The woman asked. Yongkai said, the Southern Barbarian Department. After a pause, he said, are you from the Frost Snow Department? Thanks to the village chief's surprise instruction before he left, Yongkai was able to recognize the origins of these barbarians. In this ancient world, some tribes of barbarians have obvious characteristics, such as the last time I met in the canyon. People in the flame department have totem symbols like flame flowers painted on their faces, which are the Qinglian holy flame of the flame department. Although there were no totem marks on the faces of the members of the Frost and Snow Department, the spiritual power attribute revealed by the woman when she performed witchcraft just now made Yongkai guess. However, not every barbarian tribe has obvious characteristics. For example, the Nanman tribe where Kangnan village is located does not have it, so the woman cannot recognize his origin. Being pointed out by Yongkai, the woman had no intention of concealing it. She nodded and said, that's right. We belong to the Frost and Snow Department. Do you have a way to detoxify him? You can try it. The woman frowned, although she didn't think Yongkai really had this ability, but now she can only be a dead horse as a living horse doctor. After all, although her poisoned clansman was suppressed by her own witchcraft to suppress the wound. He also used the poison pulling technique to pull out a little bit of poison, but it was not completely expelled. The bone-corroding wolf's bone-corroding poison is extremely ferocious, and any remnant of it is enough to turn the strongest barbarian warrior into a puddle of thick water. If left alone, it will take at most 3 days. The tribe must die. But 3 days was not enough for them to return to the tribe. Then try it. The woman stepped aside. Yongkai stepped forward. However, a soldier from the Frost and Snow Department shouted, my lord. The woman raised her hand to stop the man from speaking. However, several barbarian warriors looked at Yongkai, obviously full of distrust. Yongkai didn't care. He went straight to the injured Shuangxe tribe and squatted down, carefully looked at the wound, and felt a little admiration in his heart. It was also thanks to the barbarian warriors being strong and vigorous, otherwise such injuries would have killed him 10 times, but now he is missing one arm. His body was poisoned, but he didn't say a word, his mind seemed to be extremely clear, his face was pale and distorted because of the pain. After watching for a while, Yang Kai suddenly raised his hand, and slapped the barbarian warrior a few times, with neither light nor heavy force, his whole body was full of spiritual power, after a few palms. The barbarian warrior's pale face suddenly turned red, and when he opened his mouth, a cloud of black blood spurted out. Yang Kai had been prepared for a long time and dodged away. Without hesitation, he shattered the frozen part of his severed arm, pinched his shoulders with both hands, and when the spiritual energy surged, it had already poured into his body. Under the gaze of several Shuangxe tribesmen, the body of the injured tribesman suddenly trembled violently, followed by a roar. Like a wounded beast, people are shocked. The next moment, a large amount of blood suddenly shot out from the broken arm, and when the blood fell to the ground, there was a burst of piercing sound, corroding the ground one after another, which shows the intense toxicity. The gushing blood lasted for 10 breaths of time, and during the whole process, if the female sorcerer hadn't stopped him, other barbarian warriors from the Frost Snow Department would have come forward to stop Yang Kai. After 10 breaths, Yang Kai withdrew his hand, turned to the woman and said, "Seal his wound." When the woman heard this, as soon as she raised her hand, a gust of cold air rushed towards the severed arm, and in the blink of an eye, the wound was frozen. As for the injured barbarian warrior, his face was as pale as paper because of excessive blood loss, and his aura was so weak that it was almost imperceptible, as if he was dead. When Yang Kai got up and took a few steps back, those barbarian warriors immediately rushed up to investigate his situation. After a while, one of the clansmen raised his head and said, "It seems to be much better, but the loss of blood is too much." Glancing at Yang Kai, his gaze became somewhat complicated. The female sorcerer nodded and said to Yang Kai, "My name is Yu, what's your name?" "A Niu." Yang Kai smiled slightly. "It turned out to be Wu Niu, thank you man God for allowing you and me to meet here." Yu, who had always been cold, finally showed a smile. Yang Kai Dao. Although your companion's poison is eliminated, if you let it go, it will still be quite troublesome. It is best to take him back for treatment. I understand, then Wu Niu, please wait a moment. While Yu was speaking, he walked up to those barbarian warriors and whispered something, and then a barbarian warrior resisted his injured companion and left the cave, apparently taking him back to the village for treatment. After turning around, Yu asked another barbarian warrior to take out some dried meat and water, and handed it to Yang Kai. "Thank you for saving my people." The barbarian family, "Lord Yu, you are welcome." Yang Kai grinned and did not refuse, took the dried meat and water and ate and drank without any scruples. Yu Dasheng was fond of this bold and patriotic person, and the slight repulsion and disdain that he had because of seeing Yang Kai's thin body before was gone. Barbarian family. This is an interesting statement. I have used the poison pulling technique before, but why is the effect much worse than yours? Yu humbly asked for advice. Before coming to this cave, she had simply treated the injuries of her clansmen, precisely because of the remaining the toxin could not be pulled out, so she could only freeze the wound and let the people take herbal medicine, hoping that the herbal medicine would detoxify the poison. Even though she knew there was little hope. You want to say, your grade is higher than mine, why is the effect of pulling out the poison not as good as mine? Yang Kai naturally knew what she meant, and smiled. Sometimes, subtle control is worse than a powerful one. Power is more important. Yu Wenyan fell into deep thought, and after a while he nodded and said, "Thank you." Yang Kai finished eating the jerky in his hand, took a sip of water and said, "It's freezing cold, what are you doing outside?" Although people in the Frost and Snow Department are not afraid of the severe cold, they would not go out casually under normal circumstances. In the cold winter, no matter whether it is a beast or a savage animal, they are extremely active because they are looking for food. The risk of going outside is greater than usual. Increase. Where is Master Niu? Yu didn't answer Yang Kai's question, but asked back. Cultivation. Yang Kai grinned. Yu was stunned for a moment, showing admiration, and said, "We are here to collect herbs, which will be used in spring sacrifices." Sacrifice. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. Kangnan village is a small village, and he doesn't know if there is such a thing as sacrifice, but he knows that in ancient times, sacrifice was very frequent, even for the great witches who have cultivated well they often sacrifice one or two, and the objects of sacrifice are either the heavens or the totems of their own tribes, and the latter are mostly. Smiling slightly, said, it seems that your progress is not smooth. Yu said sadly. Those herbs are guarded by a few bone-eating wolves, and we were ambushed. How many? Yang Kai raised his eyebrows, showing interest. How many are there? Yu said. 6. If it weren't for this, with my strength, I wouldn't let them hurt my tribe. Yang Kai's eyes flickered suddenly, and after a while, he sat upright and asked in a deep voice, Master Yu, when you go to collect herbs again, do you need a powerful helper? Yu stared at Yang Kai in amazement, his eyes brightened. She was thinking just now whether she could ask this Wu Niu for help, but after all, the two were not familiar with each other, and they were not in the same tribe, so there was no benefit for them, and it was really hard for Yu to ask, but she didn't want the other party to offer to help. Although the words of the self-proclaimed powerful helper are a bit speechless, these details don't matter. The words of the two witches are enough to ensure the safety of other clansmen. Wu Niu, what are your conditions? Although Yu was delighted, he did not lose his ability to judge. The sorcerer from the southern man tribe who met by chance, offered to help out of nowhere, and he must have asked for something. Those beasts belong to me. Yang Kai replied with a smile. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for you to agree to this condition. Although those herbs were precious, the wild beasts were also valuable. There are several of them, and there is even a high-rank sorcerer, while the other party is only a low-rank sorcerer, and it is an acceptable condition to divide them into two. But with Yang Kai helping the tribe first, you just agreed after a moment of pondering, okay, the wild beasts belong to you, and the herbs belong to us. She made a decision, and the other clansmen naturally had no opinion. Yang Kai got up and said, then it's not too late, let's set off now. Yu frowned and said, but my clan has only fought a battle, and needs a rest for a day. The barbarians' physical fitness is extremely strong, but the previous battle feathers blessed them with bloodthirsty skills. Although it only lasted for a short period of time, the lost innate blood essence also made them a little weak, and they were no longer at their peak. Brave. Don't be so troublesome, just follow me. Yang Kai walked out of the cave first, beckoning to Yu and the others. Several barbarian warriors looked at Yu hesitantly, and Yu also had a terrible headache, thinking how this Wu Niu acted in a hurry, listening to the wind as rain. But things have come to this point, and she has nothing to say, so she can only lead the team to keep up. To be continued. This book comes from A and A-C1/2.